The moment she stepped into his office, every man in the room froze, except Dominic Moretti. 3 years ago, he buried her. Now she was back, alive, furious, and carrying a secret that could burn his empire to the ground. Welcome back, my amazing family and friends. If you're ready to dive into this unforgettable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another incredible tale you absolutely can't miss. Let's get started, and don't forget to like and share to help our community grow. She walked into his empire wearing vengeance like a second skin, her stilettos echoing the same rhythm as the heartbeat he'd once held in his hands. 3 years ago, Dominic Moretti had buried an empty casket with her name on it, but the woman standing before him now, with eyes that promised destruction, was very much alive. The Sapphire Lounge sat like a jewel in the crown of Manhattan's skyline, 40 stories above the city that never slept. Chrome and midnight blue velvet adorned every surface, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light across the faces of New York's most dangerous men. This was Dominic Moretti's kingdom, a legitimate front for an empire built on blood and secrets. Naomi Sinclair stood in the private elevator, watching the numbers climb. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman transformed. Gone was the soft-spoken art gallery curator who'd once believed in love and second chances. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, a blade forged in the fire of betrayal. Her fingers traced the scar beneath her left collarbone, hidden now beneath Valentino silk the color of midnight. The bullet had missed her heart by inches. She'd learned later that proximity wasn't always measured in distance. Sometimes the things that came closest to killing you were the ones you'd invited into your bed. The elevator chimed. 50th floor. Ms. Sinclair, the hostess smiled, professional and unknowing. Mr. Chen is expecting you in the Aurora room. Chen. The name tasted like ash in her mouth. Dominic's former lieutenant, now her greatest ally. Funny how betrayal reorganized loyalties like a hurricane restructuring coastlines. Naomi's heels clicked against Italian marble as she moved through the lounge. Eyes followed her, they always did. She'd learned to weaponize beauty the same way Dominic had taught her to shoot, with precision, without hesitation, and always aiming for the kill. The Aurora room occupied the northeast corner, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city sprawling below like a constellation of broken promises. And there, silhouetted against the glass, stood the man who'd tried to erase her from existence. Dominic Moretti. Even from across the room, she could feel the weight of his presence. 6'3" of controlled violence wrapped in a Tom Ford suit, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, new since she'd died. His profile was carved from the same marble as the statues in the Metropolitan Museum where they'd had their first date. Where he'd kissed her beneath a Caravaggio and whispered promises he'd later bury in the East River. He hadn't seen her yet. She watched him swirl amber liquid in a crystal tumbler, his jaw tight with a tension she'd once smoothed away with her fingertips. There was a time when she could read every micro-expression on that face, when she knew him better than she knew herself. That woman was dead. He'd made sure of it. Dominic. Her voice cut through the room's hushed ambience like a blade through silk. He turned. The tumbler slipped from his fingers, crystal exploding against marble in a burst of whiskey and shattered glass. His face, God, his face, drained of color so completely she almost felt vindicated. Almost. Naomi. Her name left his lips like a prayer and a curse, tangled together, inseparable. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Surprised to see me? I thought you'd be relieved. After all, you paid Jackson $50,000 to make sure the job was done right. She took a step closer, savoring how he flinched. Turns out he had a conscience. Funny thing to find in your line of work. Dominic's hand gripped the back of a leather chair, knuckles white. You're supposed to be dead. She laughed, the sound hollow. I was, in all the ways that mattered. You made sure of that the night you chose your empire over your wife. The space between them hummed with 3 years of grief and rage. She could see him struggling to reconcile the ghost with the woman, the memory with the reality. His eyes, those slate-grey eyes that had once looked at her like she was his salvation, now reflected only shock and something that might have been pain if she still believed him capable of it. I didn't, he started, but she raised a hand. Don't you dare lie to me. Not now. Not after everything. Her voice remained steady, controlled. She'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in the mirror of her penthouse in Milan, in the shooting range beneath a villa in Sicily, in the dreams that still woke her gasping. I heard you, Dominic. That night in your office. I heard you tell Vincent that I was a liability, that love made men weak, that I knew too much. She watched the memory hit him like a physical blow. Good. Let him remember. Let him live in that moment the way she'd been forced to. So when Jackson dragged me to that warehouse by the docks, she continued, her heels clicking as she circled him slowly, when he pressed that gun to my heart, I already knew who'd signed the execution order. The man who'd promised to love me until death. She stopped in front of him, close enough to smell his cologne, cedarwood and bergamot, unchanged. You just didn't specify whose death you meant. Dominic's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. If I'd wanted you dead, I would be. She finished his sentence, her smile razor-sharp. Believe me, I've spent 3 years understanding that distinction. You wanted me gone, erased, removed from your perfectly orchestrated world. Whether I was 6 feet under or simply disappeared, the outcome was the same for you. The door opened behind them. Ming Chen entered, his movements fluid and economical. At 45, Chen had the kind of face that revealed nothing useful in their profession. He'd been Dominic's right hand for 15 years before Dominic's paranoia turned toxic, before he'd started seeing enemies in every shadow, threats in every loyal face. Dominic. Chen's voice carried the weight of old friendship turned to stone. Surprised to see Ms. Sinclair? You shouldn't be. When you try to kill family, you create something far more dangerous than an enemy. You create purpose. Dominic's eyes never left Naomi's face. Ming, what the hell is this? This, Naomi said, her voice silk over steel, is a reckoning. You see, while you've been consolidating power, eliminating rivals, building your fortress, I've been dismantling it. Brick by brick. Alliance by alliance. She pulled a tablet from her clutch, tapping the screen once. The shipment that got intercepted in New Jersey last month? Mine. The federal informant feeding information to your enemies? Also, mine. The real estate deal in Brooklyn that fell through, costing you $12 million? You're starting to see the pattern. She watched understanding dawn across his features, followed by something that looked almost like admiration. That stung more than she'd expected. The Veracruz cartel backing out of the weapons deal, he said slowly. The sudden audit of your shell corporations. The mysterious buyer who outbid me for the waterfront property. His eyes hardened. You've been at war with me for how long? Since the moment I opened my eyes in a Naples hospital and decided that dying was too easy. She set the tablet on the table between them. I've spent 3 years building what you see before you. A network that spans 5 countries, connections that run deeper than your family name, and enough evidence of your criminal activities to put you away for 3 consecutive life sentences. Dominic laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You're going to turn me in? The love of your life? To the feds? That's your grand revenge. No. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Prison would be mercy. What I'm going to do is much worse. She leaned in close enough to whisper against his ear. I'm going to take everything from you. Your empire, your reputation, your legacy. And when you're standing in the ruins of everything you chose over me, when you've lost every single thing you valued more than our love, then you'll understand exactly what you did to me that night. She pulled back, studying his face. Even now, even after everything, her traitorous heart stuttered at his proximity. She hated herself for it. You have 7 days, she continued, her voice businesslike now. 7 days before I execute Phase 2. Use them wisely. Say goodbye to your empire. Dominic. The queen you tried to sacrifice has come back to claim the board. She turned to leave, each step measured and deliberate. Behind her, she heard him move, fast, predator quick. His hand caught her wrist, spinning her back to face him. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm, muscle memory awakening nerves she thought she'd killed. Wait. His voice was raw now, stripped of its usual command. Naomi, wait. God, just let me explain. She looked pointedly at his hand on her wrist, then back to his face. You have 5 seconds to let go before Chen puts a bullet between your eyes. We may be in your establishment, but you're outnumbered and outgunned. It was true. She could see them now, her people, positioned throughout the lounge. 6 of her best operatives, blending seamlessly with Dominic's own security. He'd gotten sloppy in his confidence, or perhaps grief had made him careless. Either way, the advantage was hers. He released her, but didn't step back. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes to tell you what really happened that night. I know what happened. I was there, remember? Well, until Jackson dumped my bleeding body in the Hudson. The scar beneath her collarbone burned with phantom pain. You heard part of a conversation. Dominic's voice took on an urgent edge. A conversation staged for Vincent's benefit because I knew, he was the one planning to kill you. I was trying to protect you, Naomi. Everything I said, everything you heard, it was theater. She laughed, the sound brittle as breaking ice. Really? That's your explanation? After 3 years, that's the best you can do? She shook her head. You're even more of a coward than I thought. At least own your choices, Dominic. At least give me that much respect. I watched your casket lowered into the ground. His voice cracked. I stood at your grave for 6 hours in the rain. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I wanted to climb into that hole with you because the world without you in it was worse than any hell I could imagine. Save the poetry for someone who hasn't seen your true face. She turned again, and this time he didn't stop her. But his words followed her to the elevator, haunting and impossible to ignore. If I'd wanted you dead, my love, I would have died with you. Because without you, I was already a ghost. The elevator doors closed on his broken expression, on the ruins of the life they'd built together, on the man she'd loved more than her own survival. What would you do if the person you loved most betrayed you? Would you seek revenge, or would you search for the truth? Drop your thoughts below. Naomi pressed her palm against the cool steel wall, steadying herself. 3 years. 3 years of preparation, of hardening herself into a weapon sharp enough to cut through his defenses. She couldn't afford doubt now. Couldn't afford to wonder if the pain in his eyes was real or just another manipulation. Chen joined her in the elevator, his expression carefully neutral. That went well. Did it? She watched the numbers descend, each floor taking her further from Dominic and the gravitational pull he still exerted on her traitorous heart. You're shaking. She looked down at her hands. He was right. She curled them into fists. Adrenaline. Is that what we're calling it? Chen's voice was gentle. In the 3 years since he'd found her half-dead and hypothermic, floating in the Hudson, he'd become something between a friend and a guardian. He'd helped her disappear, helped her heal, helped her build the foundation of her revenge. He, more than anyone, understood what she'd lost. His lying, she said, needing to hear it out loud. The story about Vincent, about protecting me, it's just another manipulation. That's what he does. He makes you believe, makes you hope, and then he destroys you. The elevator reached the ground floor. Through the glass doors, she could see her car waiting, a black Mercedes with bulletproof glass and enough weaponry hidden in its panels to start a small war. Her life now, measured in threats and countermeasures. What if he's not lying? Chen asked quietly. She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because if Dominic was telling the truth, if he'd actually been trying to save her, then she'd spent 3 years building her revenge on a foundation of misunderstood intentions and tragic timing. And that possibility was more terrifying than any bullet. The penthouse overlooked Central Park, a glass and steel fortress 40 stories above the city's pulse. Naomi stood at the window, watching dawn paint the sky in shades of bruised purple and gold. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dominic's face, the shock, the pain, the desperate edge to his voice when he begged for 5 minutes to explain. She'd denied him those minutes. But she couldn't deny the questions they'd planted in her mind, growing like weeds through concrete. You need to eat something. Isabel Rodriguez appeared beside her, pressing a cup of black coffee into her hands. At 28, Isabel was Naomi's head of security and the closest thing she had to a friend in this new life. Former Special Forces, she'd left the military after one too many compromised missions and found her way into Naomi's organization through Chen's network. I need answers. Naomi took the coffee, letting its heat anchor her. Pull the surveillance footage from that night. Everything we have from Dominic's office, the warehouse, the docks. I want to see it all again. Isabel's dark eyes studied her carefully. You've watched it 100 times. Then I'll watch it 101. Naomi's voice was sharp, defensive. He's playing mind games. That's what he does best. Or, Isabel said carefully. You saw your husband for the first time in 3 years and realized the narrative you've been living might have cracks in it. Naomi's jaw tightened. Get me the footage. 20 minutes later, she sat in her home office, a room designed for war, with monitors covering one wall and a weapons cache hidden behind false panels. The footage played across 3 screens simultaneously: security cameras from Dominic's private office at the Moretti Tower, external shots of the warehouse district, and traffic cameras from the night she'd almost died. Chen joined her, carrying files she'd requested. The autopsy reports on Jackson. The ballistics analysis. Your medical records from Naples. He set them on her desk with deliberate care. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I'm already on it. She pulled up the office footage first, the timestamp reading 11:47 p.m., 3 years and 4 months ago. On screen, her former self appeared, younger, softer, wearing a cream silk blouse and tailored pants. She watched herself enter Dominic's office without knocking, the casual intimacy of a wife who belonged in every space her husband occupied. Past Naomi smiled at him, and past Dominic looked up from his desk with an expression that made present Naomi's chest constrict. Love. Pure, unguarded love. I brought you dinner, past Naomi said, her voice tinny through the speakers. You've been here for 14 hours. Dom. Even mob bosses need to eat. Past Dominic rose, crossing to her, pulling her into his arms. What did I do to deserve you? Probably something terrible in a past life. Past Naomi laughed, the sound carefree. Karmic balance. They kissed, and present Naomi forced herself not to look away from the tenderness, from the lie of it all. Or what she'd believed was a lie. Past Dominic pulled back first. Naomi, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to go to the gallery early tomorrow. Stay there. Don't come home until I call you. Past Naomi's smile faded. What's happening? Just trust me. Please. There's a situation I need to handle, and I need to know you're safe. A situation? Dominic, what? The office door opened. Vincent Calabrese walked in, all 6'4" of him, with a kind of smile that looked friendly until you noticed the dead eyes above it. Dominic's cousin, his underboss, the man who'd stood as best man at their wedding. The man who'd ultimately ordered her death. Vincent. Past Dominic's voice changed, became cooler. We'll discuss this tomorrow. No need for formality, cousin. Naomi's family. Vincent's smile widened. Though I am interrupting a private moment. Forgive me. It's fine. Past Naomi stepped back from Dominic, and present Naomi wanted to scream at her younger self. Run. Right now. Just run. Actually, Vincent said, settling into one of the leather chairs, this concerns Naomi too. I've been thinking about our expansion into the art market. Naomi's gallery connections could be invaluable for moving specialty items. No. Dominic's voice was flat. We've discussed this. Naomi's work stays legitimate. Even if it benefits the family. Especially then. She's not part of the business, Vincent. That was the deal. Present Naomi paused the footage. There, she said to Chen. That's what I heard through the door 15 minutes later. That argument about me being a liability. Keep watching, Chen said quietly. She hit play. On screen, past Naomi excused herself. She remembered claiming she had early morning inventory at the gallery. She remembered kissing Dominic goodbye, remembered the way he'd held on just a second too long, like he was trying to memorize the shape of her. The door closed behind past Naomi. And everything changed. Dominic moved with lethal speed, slamming Vincent against the wall, forearm pressed to his throat. Touch her, and I'll bury you next to your father. Vincent laughed, choking. You don't have the balls. Family is everything, remember? She's my family now. You threaten her again, and blood won't save you. Dominic released him, stepping back. I know what you're planning, Vincent. I know about the contract. Present Naomi's blood turned to ice. Contract. Vincent straightened his suit, still smiling. I don't know what you're. Jackson told me everything. You approached him 3 weeks ago. Offered him $50,000 to eliminate a problem. Dominic's voice was deadly calm. My wife is not a problem to be eliminated. Your wife is a civilian who knows too much. She's seen our books, met our connections, listened to our conversations. She's a walking RICO case waiting to happen. Vincent's mask slipped, showing the predator beneath. You've gone soft, Dominic. Love makes men weak. Makes them vulnerable. The family can't afford your weakness. Then the family will have to adjust. Dominic moved to his desk, pulled out a file. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, Naomi is leaving the country for 2 weeks. Art buying trip in Europe. Her gallery's been planning it for months. While she's gone, you and I are going to have a very public falling out over business strategy. You're going to take a portion of territory and assets, establish your own operations. We split the family, clean and professional. You're giving me territory? Just like that. I'm exiling you, Dominic corrected. With enough resources that you have no reason to look back. You stay away from my wife, and you get to build your own empire. You come near her, and I'll make sure you don't build anything but a coffin. Vincent studied him for a long moment. You'd really choose her over the family? Over everything we've built? Without hesitation. Present Naomi's hands trembled on the mouse. This couldn't be real. This footage had to be doctored, manipulated. Keep watching, Chen urged. Vincent left. The timestamp jumped forward. The cameras had motion-activated recording, so there were gaps when the office was empty. The next clip showed 12:17 a.m. Dominic alone, making a phone call. Jackson. Change of plans. I need you to take Naomi somewhere safe. No, not the safe house. Vincent might know about it. I need her completely off the grid. Pause. I don't care what it costs. Book flights to Naples. Use the Moretti account in the Cayman Islands. There's enough there to keep her comfortable for years if necessary. Another pause. If anything happens to me, I need you to make sure she stays gone. Promise me. Promise me she'll be safe, whatever it takes. Dominic ended the call. And then, alone in his office, he did something present Naomi had never seen in their 5 years together. He cried. Not just tears, broken, gasping sobs that shook his entire frame. He pressed his palms against his desk, head bowed, and wept like a man mourning a death that hadn't happened yet. I'm sorry, he whispered to the empty room. God, Naomi, I'm so sorry. But I can't let them hurt you. Even if you hate me for this. Even if you never forgive me. I need you alive. The footage continued. At 12:34 a.m., Vincent returned. Change your mind? Dominic asked, his face composed again, tear tracks hidden in shadow. I want assurances. Written contracts. Insurance that you won't change your mind and come after me once your wife is safely tucked away in whatever fairy tale you're constructing. Done. My lawyer will have everything ready by morning. Vincent smiled. You always were the smart one, cousin. Too bad about your weakness. He moved toward the door, then paused. Although, if I were you, I'd make sure Jackson understands his instructions clearly. Men like him sometimes get confused about what take her somewhere safe means. Especially when there's money involved and loose ends to tie up. Dominic's head snapped up. What did you do? Me? Nothing. Yet. But Jackson's been on my payroll longer than he's been on yours. Funny how loyalty works when you pay better. Vincent's smile was poison. So here's my counteroffer. You give me what I want, full control of the Eastern operations, the waterfront properties, and 60% of the arms deals, or Jackson follows my instructions instead of yours. And my instructions are much more permanent. You son of a. Choose, cousin. Your empire or your wife. You have until 2 a.m. to decide. That's when Jackson makes the pickup. Vincent left. And Dominic grabbed his phone, made 6 calls in rapid succession. Chen's number appeared on the caller ID for one of them. Ming, I need you to get to the warehouse district. Jackson's been compromised. Vincent got to him. I'm sending coordinates. Find Naomi before 2 a.m., get her out of the city, and don't trust anyone from the family. No one. His voice cracked. If I don't make it through this, make sure she knows. Tell her I loved her more than my own life. Tell her everything I did was to keep her breathing. Naomi stopped the footage. Her coffee had gone cold. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. There's more, Chen said quietly. The warehouse footage. She didn't want to see it. But she pulled it up anyway. The warehouse by the docks appeared on screen. She remembered the smell of it, fish and rust and fear. The timestamp read 1:47 a.m. Jackson dragged her from a black SUV, her mouth taped, hands zip-tied. She'd been taken from their apartment while packing for her trip to Europe, ambushed by the man Dominic had trusted to protect her. On screen, past Naomi fought. She'd always been a fighter, even before she'd learned to channel it into something deadlier. Jackson backhanded her, and she went down. Nothing personal, Jackson said to her crumpled form. Vincent's paying triple. You understand how it is. He pulled out his gun. Pressed it to her chest, right over her heart. The warehouse door exploded inward. Dominic entered like a force of nature, flanked by 4 of his personal guards. Step away from her, Jackson. Right now. Can't do that, boss. Got a job to finish. Vincent's dead. Dominic's voice was ice. Died 30 minutes ago. Tragic accident. His car went off the pier. So whatever he promised you, it died with him. Jackson's eyes widened. You killed your own cousin. I killed a man who threatened my wife. There's a difference. Dominic moved closer, each step measured. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to put down that gun, untie her, and pray I'm feeling merciful enough to let you walk out of here. Present Naomi watched her past self through Jackson's camera phone. He'd been recording, probably for Vincent's benefit. She saw the moment Jackson made his choice, saw his finger tighten on the trigger. The gunshot was deafening even through speakers. But Dominic moved faster, a desperate, impossible dive that put him between the bullet and Naomi. The round caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. His guards opened fire. Jackson went down in a spray of blood and bad decisions. Dominic crawled to past Naomi, his blood soaking into her clothes as he tore the tape from her mouth, cut the zip ties. You're okay. You're okay. I've got you. Dominic, you're shot. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters except you. He cradled her face in his bloody hands. I need you to listen to me. Vincent's people don't know he's dead yet. They're going to come for revenge, and I can't protect you if you're here. Chen's waiting outside. He's going to take you somewhere safe, somewhere no one can find you. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth, desperate, farewell kisses. I love you. I love you more than power, more than legacy, more than my own life. Everything I did tonight, I did for you. Promise me you'll remember that when this all goes to hell. What are you talking about, Dominic? But Chen was there, lifting past Naomi despite her protests. The footage ended with Dominic collapsing against the warehouse wall, blood spreading across his white shirt, watching them leave. Present Naomi sat in silence. The monitors glowed in the dim office, showing paused images of a love story she'd misunderstood, a sacrifice she'd mistaken for betrayal. There's one more thing, Chen said. He pulled out a file, handed it to her. Jackson's autopsy. Look at page 3. She opened it with numb fingers. Page 3 detailed the contents of Jackson's pockets when he died. Cash. Keys. A burner phone. And a blood-stained piece of paper with handwriting she recognized as Vincent's. Make it look accidental. The Hudson is deep this time of year. 50,000 on completion. Eliminate the Moretti wife. She's a liability we can't afford. Jackson was supposed to stage your death, Chen explained. Make it look like an accident. Collect payment from Vincent. But Dominic found out, killed Vincent, tried to save you. When Jackson pulled the trigger anyway, he paused. You weren't supposed to survive that bullet, Naomi. Dominic took it for you. And then Jackson panicked. He knew Dominic's guards would kill him if he finished the job. So he did the next best thing. He shot you non-fatally, dumped you in the river, and hoped the cold water would finish what he'd started. He collected half the payment from Vincent's accounts before Dominic's people found him and resolved the situation. Resolved. Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. He didn't die in that warehouse. That was another of Vincent's men. Jackson ran. Dominic hunted him for 6 months before finding him in Bogota. By then, you were already dead, or so Dominic believed. I pulled you out of the Hudson 40 minutes after Jackson dumped you. You were hypothermic, barely breathing, with a bullet lodged near your heart. I made a choice. Chen met her eyes. I let Dominic think you died. Because you'd heard that conversation through his office door, the one Vincent staged to make you doubt your husband. You believed Dominic had betrayed you. And I thought maybe you deserved a chance to live without that pain. You let him mourn me. The words felt like glass in her throat. For 3 years. You let him bury an empty casket and grieve a wife who was alive. I let you heal. I gave you time to become strong enough to survive in this world without protection. Chen's voice was steady, but his eyes held regret. Would you have believed the truth 3 years ago? After what you heard? Or would you have spent your life wondering, suspicious, always waiting for the betrayal you thought was inevitable? Naomi stood abruptly, the chair clattering backward. Her chest felt too tight, her lungs unable to pull enough air. 3 years. 3 years of hating him, planning his destruction, building an empire meant to crush his. 3 years of believing herself a widow to Betrayal when she'd been a widow to love all along. Where's Dominic now? After last night? My contacts say he's called an emergency meeting with his captains. He's preparing for war, assuming you're coming for him with everything you've built. Chen stood as well. Naomi, what are you going to do? She looked at the frozen image on the monitor, Dominic's face in the warehouse, blood-soaked and desperate, watching her being carried away. The man who'd chosen her over his empire, who'd killed his own cousin, who'd taken a bullet meant for her heart. The man she'd just declared war against. I'm going to do what I should have done last night. She grabbed her coat, her keys, her phone. I'm going to give him those 5 minutes. And then. She paused at the door, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. Then I'm going to tear down everyone who tried to take me from him. Vincent might be dead, but his people aren't. They've had 3 years to spread through Dominic's organization like cancer. If I'm going to fix this, I need to cut out every trace of that betrayal. Isabel appeared in the doorway. We've got movement. 3 SUVs just pulled up to Dominic's private residence in the Hamptons. Occupants match profiles of Vincent's former associates, the ones who scattered after his death. They're making their move. Naomi's blood ran cold. They think I've weakened him. They think now's their chance to finish what Vincent started. They're not wrong, Chen said. You've been dismantling his empire for months. He's vulnerable. They're going after him while he's distracted by your return. She'd done this. Her revenge had opened the door for Vincent's remnants to strike. She'd been so focused on destroying Dominic that she'd never noticed she was doing Vincent's work for him. How many men does Dominic have at the Hamptons house? Maybe 6, Isabel said. Against 15 minimum in those vehicles. The math was brutal. Dominic was good. Better than good. But outnumbered 3-1 with no warning? Even he couldn't survive those odds. Naomi pulled her phone, dialed a number she'd programmed but never called. It rang once. Twice. Naomi. Dominic's voice was rough, exhausted. In the background, she heard urgent voices, sounds of preparation. If you're calling to gloat. Vincent's people are coming for you. Right now. 3 SUVs, 15 men minimum, heading to your Hamptons house. The words came out sharp, urgent. Get out. Take your people and get somewhere safe. Silence on the line. Then, how do I know this isn't part of your plan? You don't. But I'm asking you to trust me anyway. Her voice cracked. I watched the warehouse footage, Dominic. All of it. I know what you did. I know what Vincent did. And I know I've spent 3 years hating you for a betrayal that never happened. So please trust me one more time. Get out of that house. The warehouse footage. His voice changed, became something raw and painful. Naomi. Not now. First, you survive. Then we talk. She was already moving, Isabel and Chen flanking her. I'm 10 minutes out. Hold them off until I get there. No. Absolutely not. If Vincent's people are coming, the last place you should be. The last place I should be is anywhere but by your side. That's what you tried to tell me 3 years ago, isn't it? We're stronger together than apart. She reached the elevator, jabbing the button. I've got 12 of my best people, enough weapons to start a small war, and 3 years of rage looking for the right target. Vincent's people just became that target. Naomi, his voice was everything, relief and terror and love and desperation mixed together. I can't lose you again. I can't survive it twice. Then don't die before I get there. Because we have 3 years of conversations to catch up on, and I'll be damned if Vincent's ghost gets the last word. She ended the call as the elevator doors opened. Isabel was already on her phone, mobilizing their team. Chen checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. For the record, Chen said as they descended, this is either the best decision you've ever made or the one that gets us all killed. Naomi smiled, a real smile this time, sharp with purpose and the clarity that came from finally knowing the truth. Let's make sure it's the former. The elevator reached the garage. Her team was already there, armed and ready. 12 of the most dangerous people she'd recruited over 3 years, loyal not to money or power but to the woman who'd built something out of nothing, who'd risen from the dead with fire in her veins. Listen up, she addressed them, her voice carrying command. The target has changed. We're not going after Dominic Moretti, we're saving him. Vincent Calabrese's remaining associates are making a play for power, and they've chosen tonight to eliminate the competition. We're going to show them why that was a mistake. One of her operatives, Marcus, former Marine sniper, spoke up. No offense, but we've spent months planning Moretti's takedown. Why the sudden switch? Because I was wrong. The admission cost her, but truth had its own weight. Dominic Moretti isn't the enemy. He never was. And I've spent 3 years punishing an innocent man for crimes he didn't commit. Tonight, I start making that right. She met each of their eyes, making sure they understood. Anyone who's not comfortable with this change can walk away. No judgment, no consequences. But if you're with me, you follow my orders without question. We protect Dominic. We eliminate Vincent's remnants. And we make sure everyone in this city knows that betraying the Moretti family, or their allies, comes with a price. Are we clear? 12 voices responded in unison. Clear. Good. She climbed into the lead vehicle, Chen taking the passenger seat. Because we're about to reintroduce New York's underworld to the real Naomi Moretti. And this time, I'm fighting for the right side. The convoy pulled out, engines roaring into the night. Above them, the city sparkled with 10 million oblivious lives. But in the shadows between those lights, old debts were coming due, and ghosts were rising to settle scores. Naomi checked her weapons, 2 Glocks, her preferred SIG Sauer, and the knife Dominic had given her on their first anniversary. She'd carried it through 3 years of exile, a talisman of everything she'd lost. Tonight, it would taste Vincent's legacy blood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. I'm sorry. For everything. For not protecting you better. For failing you. She typed back, you didn't fail me. I failed us. But that ends tonight. Hold on, my love. I'm coming. His response was immediate. I've been holding on to you for 3 years. I can hold on a little longer. The Hamptons house appeared on the horizon, a sprawling estate on 3 acres, private beach access, the kind of fortress that should have been impenetrable. Should have been. The 3 SUVs were already there, positioned in a tactical formation. Muzzle flashes lit the windows. The sound of gunfire cracked through the peaceful night. ETA 2 minutes, Chen announced. Satellite shows Dominic's people have taken defensive positions in the East Wing. They're holding, but barely. Naomi's mind raced through scenarios, tactical assessments, probability matrices. Then she stopped. Set it all aside. Because this wasn't a mission or a strategic operation. This was her husband fighting for his life while she'd been waging the wrong war. New plan, she said. We don't sneak in. We don't use stealth or subtlety. We announce our presence, draw their fire, and give Dominic the opening he needs to turn the tables. That's suicide, Isabel said from the second vehicle via comms. That's marriage, Naomi corrected. Now let's go remind Vincent's people why they should have stayed scattered. The convoy hit the Hamptons estate like a thunderstorm given form and purpose. Naomi's lead vehicle smashed through the ornate iron gates, metal screaming as it gave way. Behind her, 2 more SUVs followed, their occupants already returning fire at Vincent's people scattered across the grounds. East Wing, defensive positions. Naomi barked into her comm suppressing fire on the main assault team. Chen, Take 4 and flank left. Isabel, secure the beach access. I don't want anyone escaping by water. Bullets sparked off reinforced glass as they approached the main house. One of Vincent's men, stupid enough to stand in the open, went down under Marcus's precision fire from the turret position. The others scattered, seeking cover behind marble fountains and imported sculptures that cost more than most people's houses. Naomi was out of the vehicle before it fully stopped, rolling behind a stone pillar as gunfire tore up the ground where she'd been. Muscle memory from 3 years of training took over, breath control, target acquisition, smooth trigger pull. Her first shot caught a hostile in the shoulder, spinning him. Her second ended his war. Dominic, she shouted over the chaos. East Wing, I'm coming in. Naomi, stay down. His voice crackled through her earpiece. He must have picked up her tactical frequency. There's a sniper on the roof, northwest corner. She was already moving, trusting his intel without question. The spot where she'd been standing exploded in a spray of stone chips. She glimpsed the muzzle flash 2 stories up and returned fire, forcing the sniper to duck. Chen, northwest roof. On it. Chen's voice was calm, professional. 3 shots in rapid succession, then, sniper down. Naomi pressed forward, her team flowing around her like water finding cracks. They'd trained for months together, hundreds of hours in kill houses and tactical courses. Now it paid dividends. Her people moved with lethal efficiency, clearing sectors, neutralizing threats, pushing Vincent's forces back toward the main house where Dominic's smaller team could flank them. She reached the east wing entrance, heavy oak doors, one hanging off its hinges from explosive entry. Inside, the house was a war zone. Priceless art shredded by bullets, furniture overturned for barricades, blood on Italian marble. Dominic. She moved through the corridor, weapon raised, clearing corners. Behind her, 2 of her operatives provided cover. Second floor, master suite. His voice was strained. Naomi, I have 3 wounded. They knew exactly how many people I had here, exactly where our weaknesses were. She took the stairs 3 at a time, her heart hammering against her ribs. Because they've been watching you. The same way I have. The admission tasted like ash. Vincent's people have been using my intelligence gathering against you. Everything I've done for the past 3 years, I've been helping them without knowing it. She reached the second floor landing. The master suite doors were reinforced steel disguised as wood, bullet-pocked but holding. She pounded twice. Dominic, it's me. Open up. Locks disengaged. The door swung inward. And there he was. 3 years had changed him. The silver at his temples had spread, lines etched deeper around his eyes and mouth. He'd lost weight, grief and stress burning him down to something leaner, harder. But his eyes, those slate-grey eyes, were exactly as she remembered. Especially now, when they looked at her like she was salvation and destruction wrapped in the same skin. Naomi. Her name was a prayer on his lips. For a moment, the battle outside faded. There was only this, 2 people who'd loved and lost and found each other in the wreckage of their choices. Then instinct kicked in. She scanned the room, 4 of Dominic's men, 3 wounded like he'd said. Defensive positions at windows. Limited ammunition judging by the sparse magazines on the table. They were minutes from being overrun. Status, she demanded, snapping into tactical mode because that was easier than dealing with the emotion threatening to drown her. Dominic matched her tone, reading her need for professional distance. 15 hostiles when they breached. We've dropped 4, maybe 5. They have superior numbers and they came prepared, military-grade weapons, body armor, coordination. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. For how long? Best guess? Since Vincent died. They'd been waiting 3 years for an opening. His jaw tightened. You gave them one. The accusation hung in the air. Not cruel, just factual. Her vendetta had weakened him, made him vulnerable, created the perfect conditions for Vincent's loyalists to strike. I know. She moved to the window, assessed the tactical situation. Chen's team had secured the left flank. Isabel was pushing up from the beach. But 6 more hostiles were regrouping near the guest house, preparing for another assault. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. But first. An explosion rocked the house. The west wing, judging by the direction. They're trying to flush us out, one of Dominic's men, Tony, she remembered him from their wedding, spoke up. His leg was badly wounded, blood soaking through improvised bandages. Force us into the open where they have the advantage. Then we don't give them what they want. Naomi pulled out her tablet, syncing with her team's tactical network. Chen, what's your status? Left flank secured. We've got 8 hostiles pinned down, but they're dug in deep. Need to draw them out. An idea formed, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might work. Dominic, how well do you trust your instincts? Implicitly. Why? Because I'm about to do something incredibly stupid, and I need you to back my play without question. She turned to face him fully. Vincent's people want a target. Let's give them one they can't resist. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Absolutely not. It's the best option. I said no. Dominic crossed to her, his presence overwhelming in the way it had always been. I've spent 3 years believing you were dead. I'm not using you as bait. And I've spent 3 years believing you betrayed me. Her voice softened. We both made mistakes, Dominic. Let me start fixing mine. Those people out there, they're here because I weakened you. Because I was so focused on revenge I didn't see the real enemies. I owe you this. You don't owe me your life. No. She reached up, her palm against his cheek, feeling the rough stubble, the warmth of him. Real and alive and here. But I owe you the truth. And the truth is, I never stopped loving you. Even when I hated you, even when I wanted to destroy everything you'd built, I loved you. That's why it hurt so much. And now, her voice cracked. Now I have a chance to prove that love means more than words. It means action. It means sacrifice. The way you sacrificed for me 3 years ago. His hand covered hers, holding her palm to his face like he could keep her there through will alone. Naomi. Trust me, she whispered. The way I should have trusted you. The moment stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid, every lost day and wasted year. Then Dominic nodded, a sharp jerk of his head that cost him everything. Tell me the plan. She briefed him quickly. It was insane. It relied on split-second timing and her people executing flawlessly under pressure. One mistake and she'd die for real this time. No resurrection, no second chances. I hate this, Dominic said when she finished. I know. She checked her weapons one last time. But you taught me something once, remember? In this life, sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. I was talking about a business negotiation. The principle applies. She moved toward the door, then paused. Turned back. Crossed the space between them in 3 strides and kissed him. It was nothing like the careful, tentative kisses of their early dating. This was 3 years of longing and loss and desperate, clawing need to confirm they were both alive, both here, both real. His hands fisted in her tactical vest, pulling her closer, and she tasted salt, tears, though she couldn't tell whose. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Come back to me, Dominic said, his forehead pressed to hers. Always. She stepped back, donning professionalism like armor. Chen, Isabel, on my mark. Dominic, give me 60 seconds, then light them up from the east windows. Tony, I need you and the others ready to move when the opening comes. She descended the stairs alone, her people tracking her movement through their scopes, invisible guardian angels with bullets instead of blessings. The front entrance was a war zone, but she walked through it like she owned the night. Which, in a way, she did. Vincent's people. Her voice carried across the grounds, amplified by tactical speakers Chen had planted. My name is Naomi Moretti. Some of you might remember me. Most of you probably think I'm dead. She stepped into the open, visible on the circular driveway, floodlights illuminating her like a stage. Every weapon on the property swung toward her. She felt the laser sights on her chest, her head, her heart. 3 years ago, your boss Vincent Calabrese tried to kill me because I was a liability. A weakness in Dominic Moretti's armor. He was right about one thing. I was a weakness. Just not Dominic's. She turned slowly, making sure they all got a good look. I was Vincent's weakness. Because he never considered that a dead woman might come back angry. Movement in the guest house. 6 figures emerging, weapons trained on her. Their leader, She recognized him from the intelligence files. Marco Benedetti, Vincent's former second, stepped forward. Naomi Moretti. Marco's smile was ugly. The dead wife returns. Vincent would have appreciated the irony. Would he? I'm not so sure. She kept her hands visible, her stance relaxed. See, Vincent died thinking he'd won. Thinking he'd eliminated me and broken Dominic. But here we both are, very much alive, very much together. And you're about to learn what happens when you mistake grief for weakness. Bold words from a woman in my crosshairs. Your crosshairs. She laughed, the sound echoing across the estate. Marco, you're not aiming at me. You're aiming at bait. And you already swallowed the hook. His eyes widened a fraction, recognition of his mistake coming too late. Now, Naomi said softly into her comm. The world exploded into choreographed violence. Chen's team opened fire from concealed positions, catching Marco's group in a crossfire. Dominic's people lit up the guest house from the second floor, their angles perfect for suppressing fire. Isabel's unit surged from the beach access, cutting off retreat routes. And Naomi moved. She wasn't the woman who died in that warehouse 3 years ago, soft and unprepared for the brutality of this world. She was something forged in pain and tempered by survival. She dropped, rolled, came up firing. 2 of Marco's men went down before they could adjust their aim. Marco himself was faster, body armor absorbing her rounds, returning fire that forced her behind a marble fountain. Chips of stone exploded near her face, one cutting her cheek. She tasted blood and cordite and the sharp clarity of combat. You're good, Marco called out, but you're outnumbered. Am I? She signaled to Chen. Let me introduce you to my team. The perimeter lights blazed to life, revealing what Marco had missed in his tunnel vision. 12 of Naomi's operatives positioned in a perfect tactical formation, every sightline covered, every escape route blocked. They'd been there the whole time, invisible until the moment they mattered. You're surrounded, Naomi continued, her voice carrying command. Your boss is dead. Your plan failed. You have one chance to walk away from this, drop your weapons, surrender, and maybe, I'll consider letting you live. We outnumber you. No, Marco. You outnumber Dominic. You're outnumbered by us. She stepped out from cover, her weapon aimed steady at his center mass. Last chance. Choose. The standoff held for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then one of Marco's men, younger, smarter, clearly not interested in dying for Vincent's ghost, dropped his weapon. Then another. Then 3 more. Marco was alone, his gun still raised, his face twisted with rage and the realization that he'd lost. Vincent was right about one thing. Marco spat. Love does make you weak. Dominic chose you over his empire. And look what it got him. Betrayal from his wife, his organization in shambles, his reputation destroyed. You're wrong. Dominic's voice came from behind Naomi. He descended without her noticing, moving with the lethal grace that had made him legendary. He stood beside her now, a united front. My love for her didn't make me weak. It made me human. Vincent forgot that distinction. He forgot that loyalty built on fear crumbles the moment someone stops being afraid. He looked at the surrendered men, his voice carrying across the grounds. Vincent's dead. His legacy is poison. Anyone who wants to continue his war can join him in hell. But anyone who wants to live, who wants to build something better, you have my word that the past stays buried. Tonight, we start fresh. It was a gambit, offering mercy to men who tried to kill him. But Naomi understood the strategy. Fear created temporary soldiers. Mercy created lasting loyalty. Marco saw it too, saw his remaining support evaporate as the surrendered men nodded, accepting Dominic's offer. Saw his vendetta reduced to a solo mission with no backup and no future. Damn you both, Marco whispered. Then he turned his gun on himself. Don't. Naomi lunged forward, but Dominic was faster. He tackled Marco as the gun fired, the round going wide into the night sky. They hit the ground hard, wrestling for control of the weapon. Naomi had a clean shot. Could have ended it. Should have ended it. But Dominic was fighting to disarm, not kill. Fighting to preserve a life that had tried to take his. Because that's who he was, the man who took bullets for his wife, who offered mercy to enemies, who chose humanity even when cruelty was easier. She lowered her weapon and let him finish it his way. Dominic wrenched the gun free, flipped Marco onto his stomach, and secured his hands with zip ties Chen tossed him. You don't get to die, Marco. You get to live with your failure. You get to watch while we rebuild everything you tried to destroy. That's your punishment. Chen and Isabel moved in, securing Marco and the other prisoners. The tactical situation was resolved, hostile forces neutralized, threats eliminated, perimeter secured. But Naomi barely processed any of it. Because Dominic was standing now, turning toward her, and the look in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. You kissed me, he said, his voice rough. I did. After 3 years of hating me. I never hated you. The words came out broken. I tried. God, I tried so hard to hate you. But you can't hate someone and still dream about them every night. You can't hate someone and carry their knife for 3 years. You can't hate someone and... Her voice failed. He closed the distance between them. And what? And still love them enough that watching them almost die tonight felt like dying all over again. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I buried you. I stood at your grave and begged God to take me instead. I would have traded every dollar, every connection, every ounce of power to have you back. And when you walked into my lounge last night, when I saw you alive, his voice cracked. I didn't know whether to fall on my knees in gratitude or rage at the universe for letting me believe you were gone. I'm sorry. The words were inadequate, pathetic in the face of what she'd done. I'm so sorry, Dominic. For doubting you. For not trusting that what we had was stronger than Vincent's manipulations. For wasting 3 years on revenge instead of searching for the truth. You had every reason to doubt. Vincent staged that conversation perfectly. And guilt shadowed his face. I should have told you what was happening. Should have trusted you with the truth instead of trying to protect you through secrecy. We both made mistakes. Around them, her team and his were securing the estate, tending to the wounded, dealing with the aftermath. But in that moment, none of it mattered. There was only this, 2 people who'd lost everything finding each other in the ruins. Where do we go from here? She asked quietly. That depends. His thumb traced her bottom lip, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Are you still planning to destroy my empire? Our empire, she corrected. And no. I'm planning to help you rebuild it. Stronger this time. Together this time. She caught his hand, held it against her cheek. If you'll have me back. After everything I've done, everything I've cost you, if you can forgive me. He kissed her answer into existence, stopping her words with his mouth. It was gentler than their earlier kiss, but no less intense. A hello and a homecoming, a forgiveness and a promise. When they finally broke apart, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. There's nothing to forgive. You survived. You became strong enough to face this world on your own terms. That's all I ever wanted for you, even if it meant you'd use that strength against me. Well, I'm using it for you now. She smiled against his lips. Fair warning. I've built a substantial network over the past 3 years. Resources, connections, intelligence-gathering capabilities that rival anything you have. I'm not the naive civilian you married. Good. His smile matched hers, sharp and promising. Because the woman I married deserved better than a husband who kept secrets to protect her. The woman you've become deserves a partner who trusts her to be exactly as dangerous as she is. Partners then. In everything. He sealed it with another kiss, deeper this time, claiming and being claimed in equal measure. A polite cough interrupted them. Chen stood a respectful distance away, his expression carefully neutral. Hate to interrupt the reunion, but we need to discuss cleanup. We have 17 prisoners, 4 wounded friendlies, and approximately 47 different felonies scattered across this property. The local police will be arriving soon. They've been paid to be slow, but not indefinitely. Dominic's arm slipped around Naomi's waist, holding her close like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. Chen, thank you. For pulling her out of the Hudson. For keeping her alive. For giving her the tools to survive. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You don't owe me anything. Chen's gaze flickered to Naomi. She saved herself. I just provided the opportunity. Still. Dominic extended his hand. From this moment forward, you have a place in the Moretti family. Not as an employee or an operative, as family. That comes with everything that means: loyalty, protection, and a seat at the table. Chen shook his hand, a rare smile crossing his face. I'd be honored. The tactical situation took another 20 minutes to resolve. Prisoners were secured and transported to a private facility where they'd be encouraged to provide information on any remaining Vincent loyalists. The wounded were stabilized and moved to a Dr. Dominic kept on permanent retainer, the kind who understood that certain injuries shouldn't appear in hospital records. What does true partnership look like after betrayal? Can love survive if both people are willing to fight for it? Share your thoughts in the comments. By the time the first police sirens became audible in the distance, the estate looked almost normal. The bodies were gone. The bullet holes and blood were cleaned or concealed. Dominic's lawyers were already crafting a story about a sophisticated home invasion attempt by unknown assailants who fled when private security responded. The official story would be fiction. But fiction had its uses in their world. Naomi stood on the beach behind the estate, watching waves crash against sand illuminated by moonlight. Behind her, the house blazed with lights, people moving, voices calling, the organized chaos of crisis management. But here, in the quiet space between land and water, she could almost pretend the last 3 years had been a nightmare she'd finally woken from. Almost. You stood right there. Dominic's voice came from behind her. The night before, everything. We walked on this beach at midnight, and you told me you'd never been happier. She remembered. I meant it. Every word. She turned to face him. I loved you so much it terrified me. Because I'd spent my whole life believing that kind of love was something other people got. Not me. Not the girl who grew up in foster homes wondering why nobody wanted to keep her. And then it was taken away. Of course, you believed the worst. He moved closer, his suit jacket abandoned somewhere inside, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked more like the man she'd married, less polished, more human. I knew about your childhood. I knew that trust didn't come easily to you. And I still handled Vincent's threat in the worst possible way. I kept secrets, made unilateral decisions, tried to protect you without including you in the solution. I treated you like something fragile instead of someone strong. I wasn't strong then. You were. You just hadn't been tested yet. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. But you're right about one thing. You're not that woman anymore. And honestly, as much as I loved the woman you were, the woman you've become is magnificent. She laughed, the sound bitter. Magnificent? Dominic, I spent 3 years trying to destroy you. I dismantled your operations, turned your allies against you, cost you millions. I was your enemy. No. His hand cupped her face. You were my wife who thought she'd been betrayed. There's a difference. An enemy would have just killed me. You made me suffer because you were in pain. That's not revenge, that's grief. The insight cut deep because it was true. Every move she'd made against him had been designed to hurt, not just to destroy. She'd wanted him to feel a fraction of what she'd felt, wanted him to understand the depth of what he'd taken from her. Except he'd never taken it at all. Vincent had. They're all dead now, she said quietly. Vincent. Jackson. Most of Vincent's inner circle. You eliminated them while looking for answers about my death. And tonight, we ended the last remnants of his organization. It's over. Is it? Dominic's thumb traced her scarred collarbone, the touch making her shiver. Vincent's dead, but the damage he caused, the 3 years we lost, the trust he shattered, the life we should have had, that's not something we can eliminate with bullets and strategy. Then how do we fix it? We don't. We can't. He pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her. We can't get back the time we lost. Can't erase the pain. Can't pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. But we can decide what we do with what's left. She buried her face in his shoulder, breathing in his scent, cedarwood and gunpowder, familiar and new at once. I don't know how to do this. How to go back to being your wife after being your enemy. Then don't go back. Move forward. Be something new. His voice was rough against her ear. Be my partner. My equal. The person who knows exactly how dangerous I am because you're just as dangerous. The woman who can stand beside me in this life, not behind me, not protected from it, in it. She pulled back to look at him. "You trust me? After everything?" "Naomi." His smile was sad and genuine at once. "I trusted you the moment you walked back into my life. If I hadn't, I would have assumed your warning about Vincent's people was a trap. I would have evacuated and let them take the house. Instead, I believed you. Because for 3 years, the only thing that kept me alive was the memory of loving you. That doesn't just disappear because you hated me for a while. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of that trust. You don't have to prove anything. Just..." He searched for words. "Just stay. Choose me again. Choose us. That's all I need." She rose on her toes, kissing him with everything she couldn't put into words. The kiss deepened, becoming something desperate and claiming. 3 years of longing poured into the press of lips and hands. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw her own hunger reflected in his eyes. "Take me inside," she whispered. "To our room. I need to feel alive. Need to replace the memories of loss with something real." His eyes darkened. "Naomi. Please." She was begging, but she didn't care. 3 years, Dominic. 3 years of dreaming about you, wanting you, hating that I wanted you. I need to know this is real. That we're real. That we survived." He didn't answer with words. Instead, he swept her up, the dramatic gesture making her laugh despite everything, and carried her toward the house. People looked up as they passed, knowing smiles on faces that had been grim with combat minutes before. Their room, because it would always be their room, even though she'd been dead to the world, was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the ocean. Dominic kicked the door closed behind them and set her down carefully, his hands framing her face. "I need you to be sure," he said, his voice strained. "I need to know this isn't just adrenaline or relief or..." She silenced him with a kiss, her fingers working open the buttons of his shirt. "I'm sure. I've never been surer of anything. I love you. I never stopped loving you. And I want..." Her voice broke. "I want my husband back. Please." The last word shattered his restraint. He kissed her like a drowning man finding air, like a prayer answered, like coming home after 3 years in exile. His hands found the zipper of her tactical vest, disposing of weapons and armor with practiced efficiency until she stood before him in just the black shirt beneath. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his fingers tracing the scar beneath her collarbone, Vincent's parting gift. "And you survived. God, you survived. We both did." She finished unbuttoning his shirt, her palms splaying across his chest. There were new scars there too, the bullet he'd taken for her, plus others collected during 3 years of war. "We're both warriors now. Both scarred. Both." He kissed her, and words became irrelevant. There was only this, skin against skin, heartbeat synchronizing with heartbeat, 2 people reclaiming what had been stolen. It was desperate and tender, rough and reverent, everything all at once. Later, much later, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "Move back in," Dominic said quietly. "Not here. I'm selling this place. Too many bad memories. But our place in Manhattan. The penthouse. It's been empty since. I couldn't bring myself to change anything. Your clothes are still in the closet. Your books by the bed. Your favorite coffee in the kitchen, even though it's 3 years expired." He laughed, the sound hollow. "I kept waiting for you to come home. Guess I was more right than I knew." Naomi traced the scar on his shoulder, the bullet meant for her heart. "I have a place in Milan. Another in London. A villa in Sicily where I trained. Warehouses full of weapons and intelligence networks spanning 5 countries. Moving back isn't simple. Then don't move back. Expand. Bring your empire with you. Merge it with mine. Make something bigger, stronger, built on partnership instead of hierarchy." He tilted her face up to his. "I'm not asking you to give up what you've built. I'm asking you to help me build something new. Together." It was tempting, so tempting, to slide back into the life they'd had, upgraded with the power she'd amassed. But something nagged at her. "What about your captains? Your people? They spent 3 years watching you grieve. Now I show up and suddenly I'm your partner? They'll think I'm manipulating you." Let them think what they want. The ones who matter will understand. The ones who don't matter will learn. His voice took on an edge. Besides, after tonight, after you saved my life and eliminated Vincent's remnants, anyone who questions your place in this organization answers to me. And they won't enjoy that conversation. She smiled against his chest. Protective much? Always. Even when you're more dangerous than I am. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Which, frankly, is attractive as hell. My wife, the strategic mastermind who nearly destroyed my empire. God, I missed you. I missed you too. The admission came easier now. Even when I was planning your downfall, I missed you. Missed this. Missed having someone who understood the darkness without fearing it. They lay in comfortable silence, listening to waves crash against the shore outside. But Naomi's tactical mind wouldn't rest, already spinning through implications and strategies. We need to consolidate quickly, she said. Vincent's people are scattered, but tonight's attack proves they're still organized enough to be dangerous. We need to root out every last loyalist before they regroup. Agreed. Which means we need your intelligence network fully integrated with mine. Chen can coordinate, he knows both sides. Dominic's fingers continued their hypnotic patterns on her skin. We also need to send a message to the other families. Make it clear that the Moretti organization is united again, stronger than ever. A show of force. A show of partnership. You and me, standing together, showing the world that we survived Vincent's betrayal and came back as something more powerful. He shifted to look at her properly. I'm thinking a gathering. All 5 families. We announce our reunion, demonstrate our combined resources, and make it very clear what happens to anyone who mistakes our past vulnerability for current weakness. Naomi's mind raced through the possibilities. That's bold. Also, potentially dangerous. Gathering all 5 families in one place, someone might see it as an opportunity. Then we make sure they know better. His smile was sharp. We have your 12 operatives plus my best people. We have Chen's tactical expertise and your strategic planning. We choose the location, control the variables, and demonstrate that the Moretti family isn't just back, it's evolved. She sat up, excitement building despite the late hour and exhaustion pulling at her. What if we go further? Not just a demonstration of strength, but a restructuring of power. The 5 families have been at each other's throats for years, everyone trying to claim Vincent's former territory. What if we offer something different? I'm listening. A council. Equal representation, shared resources, mutual protection. We're spending so much energy fighting each other while the real threats, federal investigations, rival cartels, international competition, are growing stronger. Unite the families under new structure, with us at the center as mediators. She was thinking out loud now, the plan forming as she spoke. Your reputation plus my network plus a promise of stability, we could reshape the entire power structure of New York's underworld. Dominic watched her with something like awe. 3 years ago, you would have been horrified by that idea. 3 years ago, I was naive enough to think love and crime could stay separate. That I could be your wife without understanding your world. She met his eyes. Now I know better. This is our world. Both of us. And if we're going to live in it, we might as well reshape it into something better than what Vincent left behind. Better. He tested the word. That's an interesting concept for organized crime. Better doesn't mean legal. It means efficient. Strategic. Less random violence. More calculated control. We're never going to be good people, Dominic. But we can be smart ones. We can build something that lasts. She leaned in, her lips brushing his. Isn't that what you've always wanted? A legacy that outlasts us. I wanted a life with you. The legacy was secondary. Then let's have both. She kissed him properly. A life together and an empire we build with our own hands. No more secrets. No more protecting each other by pushing away. We face everything as partners, equals, together. Together, he echoed, and it sounded like a vow. They spent the next hour planning, their bodies tangled together, voices low, minds working in sync the way they always had. It felt like old times, strategy sessions that doubled as foreplay, intellectual connection that was its own kind of intimacy. They'd always been good at this, even better than they were at the physical. 2 brilliant minds finding each other, challenging each other, making each other sharper. By the time dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, they had the skeleton of a plan. A gathering in 3 weeks, time enough to organize security and extend invitations, but not so long that rumors and speculation could grow out of control. Neutral territory, a renovated industrial space in Red Hook that Dominic owned through shell corporations. Demonstrations of their combined resources and capabilities. And the proposal, a new council structure that would bring stability to New York's underworld. It's ambitious, Dominic said, watching sunrise through floor-to-ceiling windows. Could easily backfire. The families might see it as a power grab. It is a power grab, Naomi corrected. We're just being honest about it. And offering them enough incentive that cooperation looks better than conflict. She joined him at the window, his arm automatically circling her waist. The key is making them understand that we're not trying to rule over them. We're trying to eliminate the chaos that's costing everyone money and lives. His phone buzzed. Then hers. Both in quick succession. Chen's message was brief. Marco's talking. You need to hear this. Now. They dressed quickly, professionalism sliding back into place alongside their clothes. But something had shifted between them, an ease that hadn't existed before, a certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Marco was being held in the estate's wine cellar, a converted safe room with reinforced walls and no windows. When Naomi and Dominic descended, they found Chen standing outside, his expression grim. He's been talking for the past hour, Chen said without preamble. Started asking for protection, immunity, the usual. I told him we'd consider it if his information was valuable enough. And is it? Dominic asked. Judge for yourself. Chen opened the door. Marco sat zip-tied to a chair, his face bruised from the earlier fight. But his eyes held something worse than fear, they held resignation. The look of a man who'd lost everything and decided cooperation was his only path forward. Dominic. Naomi. Marco's voice was hoarse. Come to finish what you started. That depends on what you have to say. Naomi pulled up a chair, sitting directly in his eye line. Chen says you're ready to talk. So talk. Marco laughed bitterly. Where do I even start? Vincent's dead, but his network, God, you have no idea how deep it went. How many people he bought, how many secrets he collected, how many insurance policies he put in place. Enlighten us, Dominic said, his voice dangerously soft. Vincent knew you were planning to exile him. He knew about the deal you offered, the territory split, all of it. He had your office bugged for months. Marco's eyes flickered between them. That conversation you staged about Naomi being a liability? Vincent knew it was theater. He knew you were trying to protect her. Naomi's blood ran cold. Then why? Because it didn't matter. Marco cut her off. Vincent didn't want territory or power sharing. He wanted it all. And the only way to get it was to eliminate you both. But he couldn't just kill Dominic. Too obvious. Too risky. He needed Dominic destroyed emotionally first, made vulnerable, made careless. His gaze settled on Naomi. So he decided to kill you for real, make it look like Dominic's orders, and wait for grief to do the rest. Jackson was working for Vincent the whole time, Dominic said slowly. Not the whole time. Jackson was loyal to you until Vincent offered him 100,000 and proof that you'd ordered hits on other people's wives. Fabricated proof, but convincing. Vincent was good at that, taking truth and twisting it just enough to make lies believable. Marco shifted in his chair. Jackson thought he was preventing you from becoming a monster. By the time he realized Vincent had played him, he was in too deep. Naomi thought of Jackson pressing that gun to her chest, the conflict in his eyes. He hesitated. In the warehouse, he hesitated before pulling the trigger. Because he knew. Marco's voice was quiet now. Dominic showing up, willing to die for you. Jackson realized he'd been manipulated. That's why he didn't kill you outright. Why he made it look good enough to satisfy Vincent but left you alive enough for a chance. He knew he couldn't undo what he'd done, but he could at least not complete it. And then he ran, Chen said. Spent 6 months in South America before Dominic's people found him. Marco nodded. I helped him run. Gave him contacts. Money. Because by then, I knew, we all knew, that Vincent's plan had worked too well. Dominic thought Naomi was dead. He went on a warpath that made the Red Wedding look like a garden party. Anyone even remotely connected to Vincent ended up dead or disappeared. Jackson knew he was a loose end, so he ran. Didn't matter in the end. No, Dominic's voice was flat. It didn't. Naomi put a hand on his arm, feeling the tension coiled there. What else? You said Vincent had insurance policies. Files. Detailed records of every operation, every player, every dirty secret from all 5 families. Vincent collected information like some people collect art. He had dirt on judges, cops, politicians, rival organizations, enough to bring down the entire New York underworld if it ever went public. Marco leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. Before he died, he told his most trusted people where the files were hidden. Not all of it, but pieces. Insurance that if anything happened to him, his people could use the information for leverage or revenge. Where are these files now? Naomi demanded. Scattered. Digital and physical copies, hidden in safety deposit boxes, encrypted servers, with lawyers under instructions to release them under specific conditions. Marco's smile was grim. You killed most of the people who knew the locations tonight. But not all. There are at least 3 more out there, and they know you're coming for them. Dominic and Naomi exchanged glances. This changed everything. Vincent's information network, if it went public, could trigger federal investigations that would dismantle not just the Moretti organization but every family in New York. It was a doomsday device with a dead man's switch. Names, Dominic said. Give us names of who has access to these files. I want guarantees first. Full immunity, new identity, enough money to start over somewhere Vincent's ghost can't reach me. You'll get immunity from us, Naomi said carefully. But the feds, that's not something we can control. Best we can offer is enough head start and resources to disappear before any potential indictments. Marco studied her, calculating. Finally, he nodded. 3 people. Angela Romano. She runs a legitimate accounting firm in Manhattan but handles all of Vincent's financial records. She has access to the digital files. Then there's Father Thomas Benedetto at St. Augustine's in Brooklyn. Vincent used the church as a dead drop, and the good father knows where the physical documents are stored. And finally, Vincent's actual son, Leo Calabrese. Vincent has a son. Dominic's surprise was evident. I've known him for 20 years. He never mentioned. Because Leo's mother was nobody. A cocktail waitress Vincent got pregnant and paid off. The kid's been in Europe his whole life, groomed quietly to take over if anything happened to Vincent. He's 24 now, Ivy League educated, speaks 5 languages, and has a grudge the size of Manhattan against the man who killed his father. Marco's eyes locked on Dominic. That would be you. The implications settled over the room like fog. A son no one knew about, probably watching from overseas, waiting for the right moment to strike. With access to enough damaging information to destroy them all. Where in Europe? Chen asked. Last I heard, London. But Leo's smart. He won't stay in one place long. Probably moving between Vincent's various properties, gathering resources, building his own network. Marco's expression turned calculating. You're going to need my help finding him. Leo trusts me. Thinks I'm still loyal to Vincent's memory. In exchange for... Naomi prompted. Everything I asked for, plus a guarantee you won't kill Leo. He's 24, grew up without a father because Vincent chose business over family. He deserves better than dying for a grudge he inherited. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's Vincent's son. He's a kid who lost his father, Marco corrected. The same way you lost Naomi, suddenly, violently, with no chance to say goodbye. You of all people should understand what that grief does to someone. The parallel was uncomfortable, but accurate. Naomi squeezed Dominic's arm gently. He's right. If Leo's been raised on Vincent's version of events, he probably thinks you're a monster who killed his father in cold blood. We need to give him the truth before he acts on lies. And if he doesn't believe the truth, then we deal with it, she said quietly. But we try talking first. No more cycles of revenge, Dominic. That's what destroyed Vincent. It's what almost destroyed us. We break the pattern here. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Marco, you get your deal, on one condition. You help us locate all 3 of those people, and you convince Leo to meet with us on neutral ground. No tricks, no betrayals, no last-minute plays for Vincent's ghost. You do that, and you walk away from this life with enough money and protection to build something new. And if I refuse? Then you stay in this chair until you starve, and we find them ourselves. Your choice. Dominic's voice was conversational, but the threat was real. You have 10 seconds to decide. Marco didn't need 10 seconds. Deal. But I want it in writing, signed by both of you. And I want Chen as my handler. No offense, but I trust him more than either of you. None taken, Naomi said dryly. Chen. I can work with that. Chen pulled out his phone. I'll have a contract drafted within the hour. Marco, start writing down everything you know. Locations, passwords, security protocols, contact methods. Everything. As Chen and Marco worked out details, Dominic pulled Naomi aside. This is going to get complicated fast. Angela Romano is connected to the Russo family. Father Benedetto has protection from the church. And Leo, he's an unknown variable with Vincent's intelligence and resources. Which is why we move quickly. Naomi's mind was already strategizing. Angela first. She's the most vulnerable and most likely to cooperate if we approach correctly. I can handle her. She's a civilian. So was I, once. Naomi's smile was sharp. Trust me, I know exactly how to talk to a woman who's in over her head. You focus on Father Benedetto. Use your family's history with the church. Leverage the fact that harboring criminal evidence violates his vows. Religious men respond to appeals to conscience, sometimes. And Leo. We save him for last. Give him time to hear through the grapevine that we're cleaning house, that we're offering mercy to Vincent's people, that we're not the monsters Vincent painted us to be. Let curiosity soften him before we make contact. She paused. But we prepare for war anyway. Just in case. Dominic pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You know what I love about you. You plan for peace but prepare for war. That's the kind of partner I need. Good. Because you're stuck with me now. For better or worse, remember. She smiled against his lips. Though I think we've had more than our share of worse. Maybe we're due for some better. Maybe we are. He kissed her softly, a promise and a prayer combined. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of coordinated action. Angela Romano folded almost immediately when Naomi appeared at her office with evidence of financial irregularities that could bring federal scrutiny. The accountant had been coerced into helping Vincent, terrified of him even after death. She handed over encryption keys and server locations with visible relief, accepting Naomi's offer of protection and a generous settlement to start fresh in Seattle. Father Benedetto was harder. The priest believed in sanctity of confession and dead drop arrangements, even when those arrangements protected criminal enterprises. It took Dominic 3 visits, each more pointed than the last, before the father agreed to a compromise. He would destroy the physical documents but only after verifying that all of Vincent's operations had been shut down and his remaining people offered legitimate paths out of that life. It was more than Dominic wanted to give, but Naomi convinced him it was worth the moral high ground. We're not just consolidating power, she reminded him. We're reshaping perception. The families need to see us as different from Vincent. Better than him. This is how we prove it. The gathering of the 5 families was scheduled for the 3rd week. Invitations went out, carefully worded to emphasize partnership over hierarchy, stability over chaos. 3 families accepted immediately. They'd been hemorrhaging resources fighting over Vincent's scraps and welcomed any chance at peace. The 4th, the Russo family, hesitated but ultimately agreed after Angela Romano's testimony about Naomi and Dominic's mercy convinced them negotiation was safer than opposition. The 5th family, the De Lucas, remained silent. They're going to be a problem, Chen observed 3 days before the gathering. They were in Dominic's Manhattan penthouse. Naomi had officially moved back in, though boxes from her other properties still crowded the halls. Antonio De Luca thinks he should be running New York. He's not going to take kindly to you 2 positioning yourselves as power brokers. Then he'll learn to take it or get out of the way, Dominic said flatly. But Naomi held up a hand. Wait. What does Antonio want? Really want, beneath the posturing? Chen pulled up files on his tablet. Respect. Primarily. His second generation, his father built the De Luca organization from nothing, and Antonio spent his entire life trying to prove he's worthy of that legacy. Vincent used to mock him publicly, call him the accountant's son because the DeLucas made their money through investment fraud rather than traditional rackets. So he's insecure about his legitimacy. Naomi nodded slowly. And we're about to offer him a seat at a council table as an equal partner with families that have centuries of history. That's not a threat to him, that's validation. Unless he sees it as charity, Chen countered. Then we make sure he doesn't. She turned to Dominic. Give me 2 hours with Antonio. Alone. No security, no witnesses, just him and me. Let me make the case directly. Dominic's expression darkened. Absolutely not. Antonio's unpredictable, and you're. I'm his best chance at getting what he wants, Naomi interrupted. I'm not you, Dominic. I don't carry the weight of old grudges and territorial pissing contests. I'm new to this world's politics, which makes me neutral. And I'm a woman, which means Antonio will underestimate me just enough to lower his guard. That's what I'm afraid of. Him underestimating you means he might try something stupid. She smiled. Then he'll learn the same lesson everyone else has learned. Underestimating me is a fatal mistake. But I don't think he will. I think he's smart enough to recognize an opportunity when it's offered sincerely. Chen looked between them, then nodded slowly. She's right. Antonio respects boldness. Naomi walking into his territory alone, offering partnership, that's the kind of move his father would have made. He'll see it as a sign of strength, not weakness. Dominic clearly hated the idea, but he also trusted Naomi's instincts. Finally, reluctantly, he nodded. 2 hours. Chen monitors from a distance. And you're armed. Obviously. She kissed him quickly. I'll be fine. Trust me. I do trust you. It's the rest of the world I have problems with. The next day, Naomi drove alone to Antonio DeLuca's restaurant in Little Italy, a legitimate business that barely concealed the criminal empire operating from its back rooms. She walked in at exactly noon, carrying nothing but her phone and the knife Dominic had given her years ago, now strapped to her thigh beneath a designer dress. Antonio DeLuca was waiting in a private room, flanked by 2 bodyguards. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s, with a kind of expensive haircut and tailored suit that screamed new money trying to look old. His eyes assessed her with intelligence and wariness in equal measure. Mrs. Moretti, he said, not standing. A deliberate slight. I'm surprised Dominic let you come alone. Doesn't he worry about his wife walking into enemy territory? I'm not his possession to let or forbid, Naomi replied calmly, taking a seat uninvited. I'm his partner. And you're not my enemy, Antonio. That's why I'm here. No? Because it seems like you and your husband are trying to restructure the entire power dynamic of New York without consulting me. We're not restructuring anything. We're offering an alternative to the chaos that's been bleeding all of us dry since Vincent died. She met his eyes steadily. 3 years of everyone fighting over scraps, losing money to federal investigations, watching our operations get compromised because we're too busy sabotaging each other to notice external threats. Surely, you're tired of it. And your solution is what? A council where the Morettis just happen to be first among equals. A council where everyone benefits equally from stability. Where your investment operations get protection from federal scrutiny through pooled legal resources. Where your legitimacy as a power player is recognized by every family in New York. She leaned forward. You want respect, Antonio. You want people to stop comparing you to your father and see you as your own man. This council gives you that platform. His eyes narrowed. You've done your homework. I always do. That's why I know you've been losing sleep over the Castellano situation. They've been poaching your investment clients, undermining your operations, spreading rumors that the DeLucas are small time. Join the council, and that ends. We make it clear that attacking one member attacks us all. Your legitimacy becomes our collective interest. Antonio sat back, studying her. You're good. I can see why Dominic married you, and why Vincent wanted you dead. You see things clearly. No sentiment, just strategy. Oh, there's plenty of sentiment, Naomi corrected. I love my husband. I love the life we're building. But love doesn't make me blind. It makes me ruthless. Because now I have something worth protecting, and I'll do whatever it takes to secure it. including offering you a genuine partnership that elevates everyone involved. And if I refuse? Then you keep fighting a war on multiple fronts, alone, while the rest of us build something stronger together. Your choice. But ask yourself, would your father have chosen pride over prosperity? She stood. The gathering is in 3 days. I hope to see you there, Antonio. Not as an opponent or a reluctant participant, but as a partner who recognizes a good deal when he sees one. She walked out without waiting for a response, feeling his eyes on her back the entire way. Either she'd convinced him or signed her own death warrant. Sometimes in this world, those outcomes were separated by the thinnest of margins. Chen picked her up 2 blocks away. How'd it go? Either very well or very badly. Won't know until the gathering. She checked her phone, messages from Dominic, worried and impatient. She texted back, alive. Unharmed. Think it worked. Love you. His response was immediate. Never do that again. Also, I'm proud of you. Also, seriously never do that again. She smiled. This was her life now, calculated risks and strategic conversations, violence and negotiation, loving a dangerous man while being equally dangerous herself. 3 years ago, it would have terrified her. Now it felt like finally becoming who she was always meant to be. The night before the gathering, Naomi couldn't sleep. She stood at the penthouse windows, watching the city lights stretch to the horizon, Dominic's arms wrapped around her from behind. Nervous? He asked quietly. Terrified, she admitted. Everything we've planned, everything we've built, it all comes down to tomorrow. If even one family decides to make a play, if someone sees this as an opportunity to eliminate the competition, if Leo Calabrese shows up with Vincent's files and a vendetta, then we handle it. Dominic's voice was steady against her ear. Together. That's what you keep telling me, right? We're stronger together than apart. I know. But what if I'm wrong? What if bringing everyone together just paints a target on all of us? Then we've made the same mistake every peacemaker in history has made, trying to build something better and discovering some people prefer chaos. He turned her to face him. But we don't get to build the future by being too afraid to try. Vincent ruled through fear and division. We're offering something different. That's worth the risk. She searched his face, the face she'd loved, lost, and found again. When did you become the optimist in this relationship? When you came back from the dead and reminded me what hope felt like. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, we change everything. But sleep remained elusive. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I'll be at the gathering tomorrow. Not to make peace, to hear the truth. If you're lying, everyone dies. If you're honest, maybe we find another way. LC. Leo Calabrese. Vincent's son. The wild card they'd been trying to locate for weeks, and he'd found them instead. Naomi showed the message to Dominic, who'd given up on sleep as well. He read it twice, his expression unreadable. He's coming here to kill me, Dominic said finally. Everything else is just theater. Maybe. Or maybe he really does want the truth. Marco said Leo was smart, educated. Smart people question their assumptions. She pulled up everything they had on Leo, surveillance photos from London, academic records from Oxford, financial transactions showing a pattern of careful, strategic investments. He's not like Vincent. Look at his history. He builds things rather than destroys them. Legal businesses, charitable foundations, education initiatives. If Vincent raised him to take over, he did a terrible job of making him a killer. Or a great job of making him a wolf in sheep's clothing. Either way, we'll know tomorrow. She set the phone aside. We tell him everything. Show him the warehouse footage, the evidence of Vincent's manipulations, Marco's testimony, all of it. And then we offer him a choice. Continue his father's vendetta or help us build something that honors the parts of Vincent worth honoring. Dominic's laugh was bitter. Vincent had parts worth honoring. He built an empire from nothing. He inspired loyalty in people like Marco who still defend his memory. He had a son he loved enough to keep hidden and protected. Naomi's voice softened. He was a monster, yes. But monsters are still human. And his son deserves to know the whole truth, not just the villain's version. You're too compassionate for this world. No, she corrected. I'm exactly compassionate enough. Compassion without strength is useless. Strength without compassion is cruelty. We need both to survive. Dawn came too quickly. The gathering was set for 7 p.m., neutral hour, public enough to discourage overt violence, late enough that the warehouse location wouldn't draw unwanted attention from civilians. Naomi dressed carefully, a black dress that was elegant enough for negotiations but practical enough for combat, hair pulled back, makeup minimal. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who belonged in boardrooms and battlefields equally. Dominic wore one of his best suits, every inch the legitimate businessman with shadows in his portfolio. Together, they looked like power personified. "Ready?" he asked, offering his hand. She took it, their fingers interlacing. "Ready." The warehouse had been transformed. What was once industrial space now held a circular table large enough for representatives from all 5 families, with additional seating for security and advisors. Lighting was carefully arranged, bright enough to see faces clearly, dim enough to feel intimate. Chen had personally overseen security, positioning Naomi's people and Dominic's throughout the space in coordinated patterns. The families began arriving at 6:45. The Russos came first, led by the aging Don Russo and his daughter Sophia, who actually ran most operations. Then the Giordano's, quiet and watchful. The Costillanos arrived with excessive security, a show of force that made Chen tense but which Dominic waved off as posturing. Antonio De Luca arrived at exactly 7 p.m., neither early nor late, making a statement through punctuality. He met Naomi's eyes across the room and gave the slightest nod. Progress. By 7:15, everyone was seated except for Leo Calabrese. The empty chair seemed to mock them, Vincent's ghost still affecting events from beyond the grave. Dominic stood to begin. "Thank you all for..." The warehouse doors opened. A young man entered, alone, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most cars. He had Vincent's eyes but his mother's softer features, creating a face that was handsome and haunted in equal measure. Leo Calabrese walked to the empty chair and sat without apology or explanation. "Now we can begin," he said, his accent British educated but with Brooklyn underneath. "Let's hear these truths you're so eager to share." The warehouse fell into tense silence. Every eye tracked Leo Calabrese as he settled into Vincent's chair with the kind of casual confidence that came from either supreme courage or complete ignorance of danger. Naomi suspected it was the former. "Leo Calabrese," Dominic said, his voice neutral. "Thank you for joining us. Did I have a choice?" Leo's British accent softened the challenge in his words. "When the man who killed my father invites me to a gathering of New York's most dangerous families, declining seems unwise. Your father tried to kill my wife." Dominic's response was immediate. No softening the blow. "That's why he died. Not for power, not for territory, for putting a bullet in the woman I loved." "So you claim." Leo leaned back, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Funny thing about claims, they're easy to make when the other person can't defend themselves. My father's dead. He can't tell his side of the story. How convenient for you." Naomi stood, drawing attention from both men. "Then let's hear his side. In his own words." She pulled out a tablet, connected it to the projection system Chen had installed. "Before we discuss the future, everyone deserves to understand the past. What really happened 3 years ago. Not rumors, not speculation, evidence." She'd spent the last 2 days preparing this presentation with Chen's help. Now she walked the assembled families through the timeline, security footage from Dominic's office showing Vincent's manipulations, audio recordings of Vincent ordering her death, Marco's testimony, Jackson's confession before Dominic's people had ended him, and finally, the warehouse footage showing Dominic taking a bullet meant for her. The room watched in absolute silence. Even the most hardened criminals among them seemed affected by the raw emotion on display. Dominic's desperation, past Naomi's terror, the violence of betrayal playing out in high definition. When the footage ended, Leo's face was pale but composed. This could be fabricated. Deep fakes, staged scenes. "It's not." Marco's voice came from the back of the room. He'd been brought in as a witness, still under Chen's protection. "I was there, Leo. Not in the warehouse, but in the planning. Your father," he paused, choosing words carefully. "Vincent loved you. That part was real. But he loved power more. He was obsessed with it, consumed by it. And when Dominic chose Naomi over the family business, when he was willing to split the empire to keep her safe, Vincent saw it as weakness. Saw it as an opportunity. My father was many things, but he wasn't a liar. Leo's voice held an edge now. No, Naomi agreed quietly. He was something worse, a man who believed his own justification so completely that he could order murder and call it necessary. I'm sure in his mind, he was protecting the organization. Eliminating a threat. He probably told himself I knew too much, that I'd eventually turn on Dominic or become a federal informant. He built a narrative where killing me was the logical choice. She moved closer to Leo's chair, her voice gentling. I'm not asking you to hate your father. I'm asking you to see him clearly. The man who hid you away to keep you safe, who paid for your education, who made sure you had opportunities he never did, that was real. But so was the man who tried to murder me and manipulate Dominic into self-destruction. Both versions existed in the same person. Leo's jaw tightened. And what am I supposed to do with that information? Thank you for the complexity. Applaud your nuanced understanding of the man who raised me. No. Dominic spoke now, his voice rough. You're supposed to decide whether you want to continue his vendetta or end it. Because that's why we're all here, to break the cycles that have kept us at each other's throats for generations. He addressed the room now, including all 5 families. Vincent Calabrese's death left a power vacuum. For 3 years, we've been fighting over the scraps of his empire, bleeding resources, losing people, accomplishing nothing except making ourselves weaker. The feds are circling. Rival organizations are moving into our territory, and we're so busy destroying each other that we can't mount a unified defense. Naomi picked up the thread seamlessly. So we're proposing something different. A council of equals, all 5 families represented, decisions made collectively, resources pooled for mutual benefit. No more territory wars. No more assassinations over business disputes. We establish rules, protocols, consequences for breaking our agreements. And who enforces these rules? Don Russo asked, his weathered voice cutting through the room. Who decides what's fair when conflicts arise? We rotate leadership, Naomi replied. 6-month terms, each family takes a turn chairing the council. Decisions require majority vote. No single family can dominate, not even ours. Antonio De Luca leaned forward. And what about existing disputes? The Costillanos have been undermining my operations for months. Does this council just wipe the slate clean? Yes. Dominic's answer was firm. Existing grievances end today. We establish a tribunal to handle future disputes, neutral arbitration instead of violence. Anyone who retaliates for past actions outside the tribunal system forfeits their seat on the council and becomes fair game for collective action. Sophia Russo, Don Russo's daughter and the real power behind their family, spoke up. That's a pretty fantasy. But what's to stop someone from agreeing to peace while secretly consolidating power? From using the council as cover while preparing to eliminate the competition? Transparency. Naomi pulled up another screen on the projection. We establish a shared intelligence network. Not everything. We all keep our trade secrets, but enough that no one can make major moves without others knowing. It's mutually assured transparency. You'll know if we're preparing for war, and we'll know if you are. That requires trust, the Giordano representative said quietly. He was young, barely 30, having inherited leadership after his father's death the previous year. We don't have trust. We have barely contained hostility and temporary non-aggression. Then we build trust, Naomi said. The same way any relationship builds it, through time, through honoring our commitments, through demonstrating that cooperation benefits everyone more than conflict. Leo had been silent throughout the exchange, his eyes moving from speaker to speaker. Now he spoke, his voice cutting through the discussion. This is all very idealistic. But it doesn't address the core problem, my father's files. The documentation he collected on everyone in this room. The insurance policy he put in place to destroy you all if anything happened to him. The temperature in the room dropped. Several families exchanged glances. They'd known about Vincent's intelligence gathering but not the extent of it. We know about the files, Dominic said carefully. We've been securing them. Angela Romano has turned over the digital copies. Father Benedetto is destroying the physical documents. That leaves only me. Leo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I have access to everything. Every dirty secret, every criminal enterprise, every piece of evidence that could put everyone in this room away for life. My father made sure I'd have leverage if I ever needed it. Chen's hand moved toward his weapon. Throughout the room, security personnel tensed. This was the moment, the point where peace could shatter into violence. But Naomi stepped directly between Leo and the assembled guns, her back to him, facing the room. Stand down. All of you. Right now. Naomi, Dominic started. I said stand down. Her voice carried absolute command. Leo came here alone, unarmed, knowing he was walking into a room full of people who might want him dead. That takes courage. He deserves to be heard without staring down gun barrels. She turned to face Leo, putting herself in the vulnerable position. You have the files. You have the power to destroy everyone here, including Dominic and me. So why haven't you? You've had access for 3 years. Why wait? Leo met her eyes, and she saw something unexpected there, exhaustion. Because I'm tired, he admitted quietly. Tired of carrying my father's grudges. Tired of being the keeper of secrets I never asked for. Tired of being Vincent Calabrese's son instead of just Leo. His facade cracked slightly. I was 8 when my father first visited me in London. Do you know what that's like? Having a man appear once every few months, bearing expensive gifts and vague promises, treating you like a prince in exile? I loved him desperately. I also barely knew him. The room listened, the tension shifting from immediate danger to something more complex. When he died, I inherited more than files. I inherited expectations. His people kept telling me I had to avenge him, had to honor his memory, had to become the son he'd always wanted. But I'm not him. Leo's voice grew stronger. I'm not interested in organized crime or power games or decades-long vendettas. I'm a businessman who happens to have a criminal's DNA. That doesn't mean I have to follow his blueprint. Then what do you want? Dominic asked, his tone shifting from confrontational to genuinely curious. Legitimacy. The same thing Antonio wants, ironically. Leo nodded toward DeLuca. I have my father's resources but none of the reputation. I want to take the money Vincent made through crime and transform it into something clean. Real estate, technology investments, legitimate enterprises that won't land me in prison or a grave by 40. And the files? Naomi pressed. Are my insurance policy. Not to destroy you, to protect myself while I transition out of this world. Leo looked around the room. But if this council actually works, if you create a structure that doesn't require constant vigilance and paranoia, then maybe I don't need that insurance. Maybe I can just walk away. You want out, Sophia Russo said slowly. Completely out. I want what my father never gave me, a choice. He built an empire and assumed I'd inherit it. Never asked if that's what I wanted. Never considered that I might prefer a different life. Leo's hands spread on the table. So, here's my proposal. I turn over all the files, unrestricted. Give you everything my father collected. In exchange, you help me legitimize his assets. Use your connections, your lawyers, your knowledge of how to clean dirty money. Within 2 years, I want to be completely legitimate. No criminal ties, no mob associations, nothing that connects me to Vincent's world except shared DNA. Antonio laughed, the sound surprised. You're serious. You actually want to go straight. I'm dead serious. I've watched my father's people die or go to prison one by one. I've seen how this life ends, badly, for everyone. I don't want that future. I want something different. And if this council is really about breaking old patterns, then help me break mine. Naomi looked at Dominic, a silent conversation passing between them. Then she turned to the assembled families. Show of hands. Who's willing to help Leo legitimize Vincent's assets in exchange for unrestricted access to the intelligence files? One by one, hands rose. First Sophia Russo, then Antonio DeLuca. The Giordano's and Costillanos followed. Even Don Russo, old and traditionalist, eventually nodded his agreement. Unanimous, Naomi said quietly. Leo, you have your deal. Give us the files, work with our people on the transition, and in 2 years you walk away clean. There's one more condition. Leo's voice was quiet but firm. I want the truth. All of it. Not edited footage or curated evidence. I want to see everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence about what happened between my father and you. If I'm going to turn over his legacy, I need to understand why it had to end the way it did. Done, Dominic said immediately. Chen will give you complete access. No redactions, no omissions. You'll see exactly what Vincent did, what I did in response, and why it ended in his death. Leo nodded slowly. Then we have an agreement. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, setting it on the table. Preliminary files. Enough to verify I actually have what I claim. The rest will be transferred once I've reviewed your evidence. The moment hung suspended, the point where everything could still collapse. Then Don Russo spoke, his old voice carrying weight earned through decades of survival. This council idea. It's unusual. Goes against everything we've built our organizations on. But I'm old enough to remember when our fathers tried something similar, back in the 50s. Lasted almost a decade before greed and paranoia destroyed it. He looked at Dominic and Naomi. You two have something they didn't. You've already lost everything and found your way back. That kind of experience teaches wisdom that peacetime leaders never learn. He stood, his age apparent in the movement but his authority undiminished. The Russo family supports this council. We'll honor the terms, participate in good faith, and enforce consequences on anyone who violates our agreements, including our own people. One by one, the other families voiced their support. The Giordanos, quietly. The Costillanos, with reservations but agreement. Antonio De Luca stood last, his expression thoughtful. Naomi Moretti, you came to my restaurant and told me this council would give me legitimacy, would make people see me as more than my father's son. He looked at Leo. Seems we have more in common than I thought, both trying to build something different from what we inherited. The De Lucas are in. The room exhaled collectively. They'd done it. 5 families, decades of hostility, and they'd agreed to try something new. But Chen, ever vigilant, spoke up from his position near the door. We need specifics. Meeting schedules, communication protocols, tribunal procedures, enforcement mechanisms. Good intentions fall apart without structure. Agreed, Sophia Russo said. I propose we establish a working committee, 2 representatives from each family, rotating monthly. They draft the formal agreements, present them for approval, and handle day-to-day coordination. The next 2 hours devolved into detailed negotiations. Naomi watched it happen with a sense of surreal accomplishment. These people had been enemies last week. Now they were arguing about parliamentary procedure and dispute resolution protocols like board members at a corporate meeting. Dominic's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. She squeezed back, acknowledging the shared victory. Around 10 p.m., they broke for the night with agreements to reconvene in 1 week for formal signing of the council charter. As families filed out, security remaining heightened but tensions noticeably lower, Leo approached Naomi and Dominic. Thank you, he said quietly, for not killing me on sight. For giving me a chance to choose something different. Thank you for being brave enough to walk in here alone, Naomi replied. That took more courage than violence ever does. Leo hesitated, then extended his hand to Dominic. I don't forgive you for killing my father. I'm not sure I ever will. But I understand why it happened. And I choose not to let his death define my future. Dominic shook his hand, the gesture formal but sincere. Your father loved you. He kept you away from this life to protect you. In that, at least, he was a good father. Remember that part. Let the rest go. After Leo left, after the last security checks and final conversations, Naomi and Dominic stood alone in the empty warehouse. The circular table sat like a monument to possibility, chairs pushed back but waiting to be filled again. We did it, Naomi said, her voice barely above a whisper. We actually did it. You did it. Dominic pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. This was your vision. I just helped execute it. We're partners, remember? Equal credit, equal blame. She tilted her head back to look at him. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect it to actually work. I thought at least one family would make a play for power. They still might. This is just the beginning. The real test comes when someone breaks the agreements, when old habits and new grievances surface. His expression grew serious. But for tonight, we celebrate the fact that 5 families talked instead of shooting. That's progress. Speaking of progress. She smiled against his chest. We're married. Have been for 5 years, technically. But we've spent more time apart than together. What if, she paused, suddenly nervous. What if we do it again? The wedding, I mean. Not the legal part, but the ceremony. The public declaration. Show everyone that we're not just partners in business, we're partners in everything. Dominic pulled back to look at her properly, his eyes searching her face. You want to renew our vows. I want to marry you again. The right way this time. Not the small, private ceremony we had before where I was naive and you were keeping secrets. This time, we both go in with eyes wide open. We know the worst of each other, the violence, the manipulation, the capacity for cruelty. And we choose each other anyway. You're serious. Completely. Plus, it's a strategic move. The families need to see us as united, unbreakable. A public vow renewal demonstrates commitment, stability, permanence. It tells everyone that the Moretti partnership isn't temporary or transactional, it's forever. Dominic laughed, the sound genuine and warm. God, I love you. Only you could turn a romantic gesture into a tactical advantage. Is that a yes? That's a yes. He kissed her, deep and claiming. When? 3 months. Gives us time to solidify the council, prove it works, and plan something spectacular. We do it right, every family invited, every ally present, a demonstration of the new order we're building. 3 months, he repeated. That's fast. We've already wasted 3 years. I'm not wasting another day. Her voice softened. I want to stand in front of everyone who matters and tell them that you're mine and I'm yours. That we survived death, betrayal, and our own worst mistakes. That we came back stronger. I want the world to know. Then the world will know. He kissed her again, softer this time. Mrs. Moretti. Mr. Moretti, she replied, and the title felt different now. Earned rather than assumed, claimed rather than inherited. They left the warehouse together, Chen and Isabel providing discreet security as they drove back to Manhattan. The city sparkled around them, 10 million lives unaware that the criminal underworld had just shifted on its axis. Back at the penthouse, Naomi stood at the windows while Dominic poured drinks, whiskey for him, wine for her. He joined her, handing over the glass, his arm settling around her waist like it belonged there. What are you thinking? He asked. That 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. That I'd lost everything that mattered. And now, she gestured at the city, at their reflection in the glass, at the life they'd rebuilt. Now I have more than I ever imagined. Not just you, but purpose. Power. The ability to shape this world instead of just surviving in it. Any regrets? She considered the question seriously. I regret the 3 years we lost. I regret doubting you. I regret letting Vincent manipulate me so easily. She turned to face him fully. But I don't regret who I became in the aftermath. The woman who died in that warehouse was too soft, too unprepared for your world. The woman standing here now can match you step for step. Can be your true partner, not just your protected wife. You were always my partner, Dominic said quietly. Even when you were soft, even when you were unprepared, you were the only person who saw past the monster everyone else saw. Who loved me not despite the darkness but with full knowledge of it. And you were the first person who made me feel worthy of love. Who chose me over everything else. Power, legacy, family loyalty. You took a bullet for me, Dominic. That's not something I forget, even when I was trying to hate you. They stood in comfortable silence, sipping their drinks, processing everything that had happened. The gathering, Leo's unexpected cooperation, the council's formation. It was almost too much to believe. What do we do now? Naomi asked eventually. Now? We plan a wedding. We formalize the council. We consolidate power before anyone gets second thoughts. Dominic smiled. And we live. Actually live. Not just survive. Travel together, build legitimate businesses, maybe even start a family if you want. A family. The idea caught her off guard. Eventually. Not now, too much instability. But someday, When we've built something stable enough to protect them, when the threats are managed and the council is established. He trailed off, almost shy. I'd like to have children with you. If you want that. Naomi's heart did something complicated in her chest. I want that. Someday. A daughter with your eyes. A son with my stubbornness. A family that chooses love over legacy. Then that's what we'll build. He set down his glass, pulling her into a proper embrace. The council is just the beginning, Naomi. We're going to reshape this entire world. Make it something better than what we inherited. Better, she echoed, tasting the word. I like the sound of that. They made love that night with the city as their witness, the floor-to-ceiling windows revealing everything, hiding nothing. It was different from their desperate reunion weeks ago, less frantic, more certain. A celebration of survival and a promise of future, tangled together in silk sheets and whispered words. Later, as Dominic slept beside her, Naomi's phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number, but she recognized the pattern. Leo Calabrese using Vincent's old communication protocols. I reviewed the evidence. All of it. You were right. My father was a monster. But he was my monster, and I'll spend the rest of my life reconciling those facts. Thank you for showing me the truth, even though it hurts. The files are yours. All of them. No conditions, no holdbacks. I don't want them anymore. I don't want any part of his legacy except the money to build something better. L. A second message followed. P.S. Congratulations on the engagement renewal. If you need someone to give the bride away at the wedding, I volunteer. Seems fitting. Vincent tried to take you away, but his son gets to give you back. Full circle. Naomi smiled, tears pricking her eyes. She replied simply, thank you. For everything. You're welcome at the wedding, and at any council meeting you'd like to observe. You'll always have family in the Moretti organization, even if you choose not to be part of it. His response was immediate. Family. I like that. See you in 3 months. She set the phone aside, burrowing back into Dominic's warmth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There were always challenges in their world. But tonight, they'd won. Not just a tactical victory or strategic advantage, but something more fundamental, the chance to build a future worth fighting for. The Mafia boss's wife had returned from the dead, not as his enemy, but as his equal. And together, they were reshaping an empire. 3 months passed like a held breath finally released. The council's first month was rocky, territorial disputes erupted, old grudges surfaced, and twice Chen had to physically intervene to prevent violence during meetings. But the structure held. The tribunal Naomi had designed heard cases with surprising fairness, arbitrating disputes that would have previously ended in bloodshed. Slowly, grudgingly, the families learned to trust the process if not each other. Antonio De Luca became an unexpected ally. His legitimate business acumen helped the families diversify investments, creating revenue streams that didn't require constant federal evasion. Sofia Russo's political connections smoothed over several near disasters with law enforcement. Even the Costillanos, initially the most resistant, found value in shared intelligence that prevented a DEA raid from destroying their operations. Leo Calabrese kept his word. The files were transferred completely, terabytes of data that Chen's team spent weeks securing and cataloging. Some of it was destroyed by mutual agreement. Other portions became the council's shared knowledge base, ensuring everyone had equal leverage and equal vulnerability. True to his promise, Leo began distancing himself from the criminal world. With the council's help, he established a legitimate investment firm, hired former prosecutors as compliance officers, and slowly transformed Vincent's blood money into clean capital. He attended council meetings as an observer, offering strategic insights but never voting, maintaining his position as adjacent to the organization rather than part of it. But tonight wasn't about council business or territorial negotiations. Tonight was about love, complicated, scarred, resurrected love, being declared in front of everyone who mattered. The venue was the Metropolitan Museum of Art, rented out completely for the evening. The same museum where Dominic had kissed Naomi beneath a Caravaggio 5 years ago, where he'd promised her forever before understanding what that word would cost. Now they were making that promise again, with full knowledge of its price. Naomi stood in a private room, surrounded by mirrors that reflected infinite versions of herself. The dress was custom Valentino, midnight blue silk that reminded her of the first time she'd walked back into Dominic's life, but softer now, with delicate beading that caught light like stars. Her hair was styled in elegant curls, her makeup subtle, the scar beneath her collarbone deliberately visible above the dress's neckline. She wasn't hiding anymore. Not her past, not her scars, not the violence that had forged her into who she'd become. "You look beautiful." Isabel appeared in the doorway, her own dress a deep emerald that transformed her from bodyguard to elegant guest. "Though I still think you should have let me do a final security sweep." Chen's done 3. The museum's locked down tighter than Fort Knox. "Let it go, Isabel." Naomi smiled at her reflection. "Tonight, I'm not a tactical operator. I'm just a woman marrying the love of her life." "You're never just anything," Isabel replied, but she was smiling. "Dominic's asking for you, by the way. Something about a tradition he wants to break." "Tell him 5 minutes. I need," Naomi paused, studying her reflection. "I need a moment alone." After Isabel left, Naomi pressed her palms against the cool marble countertop, breathing through the unexpected wave of emotion. 3 years ago, she'd believed herself dead to love, dead to hope, dead to everything except revenge. Now she stood in a museum preparing to marry the man she'd once planned to destroy. The journey between those 2 points felt impossible and inevitable at once. A knock at the door. "Naomi? It's me." She opened it to find Leo Calabrese, impeccable in a Tom Ford tuxedo, holding a small velvet box. At 24, he still had the kind of face that hadn't fully settled into adulthood, pretty rather than handsome, with Vincent's sharp intelligence in his eyes but none of his father's cruelty. "Leo, I didn't expect. I know we said I'd give you away, but that felt presumptuous. You don't need to be given by anyone." He held out the box. "But I wanted you to have this. It was my mother's. The only thing my father gave her that wasn't money or guilt." Naomi opened the box to find a delicate gold bracelet, simple and elegant. "Leo, I can't. Please. My mother died 5 years ago. Cancer. She never got to see me become anything more than Vincent Calabrese's secret son. But she would have liked you, I think. Would have approved of someone who took my father's legacy and used it to build something better." His voice was steady, but his eyes were bright. "You gave me a chance to choose a different life. This is me saying thank you. And also," he smiled slightly, "also saying that if you ever need family beyond Dominic's organization, you have it. Some of us inherited Vincent's DNA without inheriting his nature." Naomi's throat tightened. She fastened the bracelet around her wrist, the gold catching light. "Thank you. For this, for everything. For being brave enough to see your father clearly and still choosing forgiveness over revenge." "I learned that from you," Leo said quietly. "You had every reason to burn down my father's entire legacy, including me. Instead, you offered partnership. That kind of grace, that's not something I forget." He offered his arm. "Now, shall we? I believe you have a groom waiting, and Dominic Moretti strikes me as the impatient type." She took his arm, laughing despite the tears threatening to spill. "He absolutely is." The museum's great hall had been transformed. White roses and midnight blue fabric draped every surface, soft lighting creating an atmosphere of intimacy despite the soaring architecture. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle rather than traditional rows, a deliberate choice that put everyone at the same level, no hierarchy or implicit seating politics. All 5 families were represented. The Russos sat beside the Giordanos, the Costillanos near the De Lucas, last month's enemies now sharing space without visible hostility. Chen and Isabel stood near the front, their security team invisible but present. Even Father Benedetto had come, having apparently made peace with blessing a union between 2 people whose hands were far from clean. But Naomi barely registered the crowd. Because there, standing beneath an arch of white roses with a Caravaggio painting behind him, their painting, from their first date, stood Dominic. He wore a midnight blue suit that matched her dress, his silver-touched hair impeccable, his slate-grey eyes finding hers across the space with an intensity that made everything else fade. The years had marked him, lines deeper, shadows darker, but they'd also refined him into something more real than the polished mobster she'd first married. This was Dominic Moretti stripped of pretense, dangerous and devoted, cruel and compassionate, a man who'd killed for her and would die for her without hesitation. As she walked toward him, Leo's arm steady beneath her hand, she saw Dominic's composure crack. His eyes went bright, his jaw tight, and she realized he was fighting tears. The mob boss who'd faced down federal investigations and cartel wars was undone by the sight of his wife walking toward him for the second time. Halfway down the aisle, Leo stopped. "From here, you walk alone. Not because you need to be given away, but because you're choosing this of your own free will. No father, no tradition, just you deciding to take those final steps." Naomi squeezed his arm in thanks, then released him. The last 10 feet to Dominic she covered alone, her heels clicking on marble, her dress rustling silk whispers, every eye on her but hers only for him. When she reached the arch, Dominic's hands found hers immediately, gripping like she might disappear if he let go. "Hi," she whispered.
"Hi."
His voice was rough. "You're really here. You're really doing this. Did you doubt?" "Every day for 3 years. Then every day since you came back, because Joy, this completely feels like something that can be taken away." His thumbs traced her knuckles. "You're so beautiful it hurts to look at you." Father Benedetto cleared his throat, drawing their attention back to the ceremony's purpose. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today not to witness a new marriage, but to celebrate the resurrection of one. 3 years ago, death tried to claim what God had joined together. Tonight, we declare that love is stronger than death, that faith, even when tested beyond endurance, can be restored." The priest looked at them both seriously. "Marriage in your world is complicated by forces most couples never face. Violence, betrayal, impossible choices between love and survival. But you've experienced all of that and chosen each other anyway. That's not naivety, that's courage. The hardest kind, where you walk toward something knowing exactly what it costs." He nodded to Dominic. "Your vows." Dominic took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice carried across the hall. "Naomi, 5 years ago, I married you believing I could keep you separate from my world. That I could protect you through distance and deception. I was wrong, and that mistake almost cost us everything." His hands tightened on hers. "Today, I'm not promising to protect you from my world. I'm promising to share it with you completely. To trust you with every darkness, every decision, every dangerous moment. You're not my weakness, you're my strength. And I vow to honor that strength, to match it with my own, and to build an empire worthy of the Queen standing before me." His voice dropped, intimate despite the audience. "I vow to love you with the same intensity one once grieved you. To fight for us with the same ruthlessness I use against our enemies. To choose you, every day, over power and pride and everything else this world offers. Because you, Naomi Moretti, are the only thing I've ever found worth dying for, which means you're the only thing truly worth living for." Tears slipped down Naomi's cheeks despite her best efforts. Father Benedetto turned to her. "Your vows." She steadied herself, finding her voice. "Dominic, I spent 3 years hating you for a betrayal that never happened. 3 years building weapons to destroy you. And underneath all that rage, all that planning, all that determination to make you suffer, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." Her voice strengthened. "Today, I vow to trust that love. To believe in us even when circumstances make it difficult. To see you clearly, the violence and the devotion, the cruelty and the compassion, and love all of it. Not despite who you are, but because of it." She stepped closer, their bodies almost touching. "I vow to be your partner in everything. In business and in bed, in war and in peace, in darkness and in whatever light we can create between us. I vow to match your ruthlessness with my own, your strategic mind with mine, your willingness to burn down the world with an equal fire." Her smile was soft and fierce at once. "Because we're not good people, Dominic. But we can be extraordinary ones. And I vow to build that extraordinarily complicated, beautifully dangerous life with you." She reached up, cupping his face. "You took a bullet meant for my heart. Today, I give you that heart freely. Forever. No conditions, no reservations, no part of me held back. All of me, loving all of you, until death actually manages to separate us, and maybe not even then." Dominic's composure shattered. He pulled her into a kiss before Father Benedetto could give permission, breaking protocol, but neither of them cared. The kiss tasted like tears and promises, and 3 years of longing finally resolved. When they broke apart, the hall erupted in applause. Not polite, restrained clapping, genuine celebration from people who understood exactly what this union represented. Not just a marriage, but a new order. Not just two people choosing each other, but 5 families choosing peace. Father Benedetto smiled indulgently. By the power vested in me, and with considerably less input than traditional ceremonies allow, I declare you, still, husband and wife. Though I suspect you two have been making your own declarations all along. More applause. Dominic kept Naomi close, his arm around her waist, both of them turning to face their assembled guests. The families stood, a show of respect that acknowledged more than the marriage, it acknowledged the partnership that had reshaped their world. The reception that followed was held in the museum's European sculpture court, transformed into an elegant dinner space beneath soaring arches and ancient art. Tables were arranged without assigned seating, another deliberate choice that forced mixing, prevented factions from self-segregating into comfortable corners. Naomi and Dominic moved through the crowd together, accepting congratulations, making small talk, subtly reinforcing alliances. But underneath the social performance, their hands stayed linked, a constant physical reminder that they were united. Mrs. Moretti. Antonio De Luca approached with a champagne flute raised. To the woman who walked into my restaurant and convinced me peace was more profitable than war. You've got a gift for negotiation. Or a gift for seeing what people really want beneath what they claim to want, Naomi replied, touching her glass to his. How are the legitimate ventures going? Surprisingly well. Turns out there's a lot of money in legal business if you apply the same strategic thinking. He lowered his voice. Though I won't lie, sometimes I miss the simplicity of just shooting problems. We all do, Dominic said quietly. But this way, fewer funerals. True enough. Antonio glanced toward where Sophia Russo was discussing something with Leo Calabrese. Speaking of which, young Leo, there has an interesting proposal. Something about pooling investment resources across families, creating a shared portfolio that benefits everyone. Kid's got vision. He gets that from his father, Naomi said. Vincent was many things, but he understood power structures and how to manipulate them. Leo's using that knowledge for construction instead of destruction. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Antonio observed. But sometimes it rolls to better soil. Here's hoping he grows into something different. As Antonio moved away, Sophia Russo took his place. She was in her 40s, elegant and sharp-eyed, with a kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Beautiful ceremony, Sophia said. Though I appreciated the subtext more than the romance. You're making a statement, unity, partnership, equal power. Very strategic. Can't it be both? Naomi smiled. Strategy and genuine emotion aren't mutually exclusive. No, Sophia agreed. But in our world, they're rarely combined so effectively. Your husband is a lucky man. I'm the lucky one, Dominic corrected. 3 years ago, I had power but no purpose. Now I have both. Sophia's expression softened slightly. My father's dying. Cancer. He has maybe 6 months. She said it matter-of-factly, but Naomi heard the pain beneath. When he goes, I take over officially. No more operating from the shadows. And I'll be honest, I'm terrified the other families won't respect a woman's leadership. Then we make sure they do, Naomi said immediately. The council's strength is in mutual support. Anyone who challenges your legitimacy challenges all of us. That was the agreement. Words are easy. Follow-through is harder. Then watch us follow through. Naomi's voice hardened. You supported this council when others hesitated. You brought political connections that have saved us all money and prison time. When Don Russo passes, may he live longer than expected, you'll have the Moretti family's full backing. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with both of us. Dominic nodded. Naomi's right. We're reshaping this world to include different kinds of power. Gender, background, methodology. None of that matters anymore. Only capability. And you, Sophia, are more than capable. Sophia's eyes went bright. Thank you. Both of you. That means more than you know. After she left, Naomi leaned into Dominic's shoulder. We're actually doing this. Building something new. Something better. Better than Vincent's world of paranoia and betrayal? That's a low bar. But Dominic was smiling. Though yes, we're doing it. And against all odds, it's working. The evening progressed through dinner and speeches. Chen gave a toast that was equal parts tactical assessment and emotional reflection. He'd watched them both at their lowest and fought to bring them back together. Isabel spoke about strength and partnership, about how the most dangerous people weren't those who fought alone but those who fought together. Even Leo stood, his British accent drawing attention as he spoke about legacy and choice, about breaking cycles and building futures that honored the past without being imprisoned by it. "My father tried to destroy what we're celebrating tonight," he said quietly. "Instead, his actions forged something stronger. That's not irony, that's justice. The universe has a way of balancing scales, even when we can't see the mechanism. To Dominic and Naomi, may your love continue to be the force that reshapes broken systems into something worth preserving." As midnight approached, Naomi and Dominic slipped away from the celebration, finding a quiet gallery away from the crowd. They stood before a Renaissance painting of resurrection, Lazarus emerging from the tomb, his face showing shock and joy at renewed life. "Appropriate," Naomi murmured. "We're both Lazarus," Dominic said. "Both died, you literally, me figuratively. Both came back changed. The question is what we do with this resurrection. We've already started." She turned to face him. "The council, the partnerships, this wedding. We're building a legacy that doesn't require blood sacrifice to maintain. That's not nothing. No. It's everything." He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. 3 years ago, I stood at your grave and begged the universe for another chance. I promised that if I could have you back, I'd spend every day proving worthy of that gift. Today, I'm renewing that promise. Every day, Naomi. Every single day, I'll choose you. And I'll choose you. She kissed him softly. Through danger and peace, through empire building and quiet moments, through whatever comes next. We're in this together, partners, equals, two halves of something neither of us could be alone. They stood there for a long moment, the museum quiet around them, Renaissance art witnessing their modern love story. Finally, Dominic spoke, "Ready to go back? Our guests are probably wondering where we disappeared to. Let them wonder." Naomi's smile was mischievous. "We're the guests of honor. We can disappear for a little while." "Scandalous, Mrs. Moretti." "You love it, Mr. Moretti." "I love you," he corrected. "The scandal is just a bonus." They returned to the reception hand in hand, and the celebration continued deep into the night. But something had shifted, not just for them, but for everyone present. The council was no longer a theoretical structure. It was real, proven, a living alternative to the chaos that had defined their world. As the evening wound down and families departed with promises to meet again at the next council session, Chen approached with Isabel. Both looked tired but satisfied. Security report: no incidents, no threats, no problems. Which is either a miracle or proof that people actually believe in this peace. Chen's rare smile appeared. "I'm choosing to believe the latter." "As am I," Naomi said. "Thank you. Both of you. For tonight, for the past 3 months, for pulling me out of the Hudson 3 years ago and giving me a chance to rebuild." "Thank Dominic for that," Chen said. "He's the one who kept asking me to search for survivors, kept insisting something felt wrong about your death. If he'd let it go, if he'd accepted the obvious answer. But I didn't." Dominic's arm tightened around Naomi's waist. "Because some part of me knew. Couldn't prove it, couldn't articulate it, but I knew that if Naomi were truly gone, I would feel it in my bones. The fact that I could still breathe, still function, it meant she was out there somewhere." "That's either profound love or profound denial," Isabel observed. Both, Naomi and Dominic said simultaneously, then laughed. The last guests filtered out around 2 a.m. Finally, alone except for cleaning staff and security, Naomi kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. "Beautiful shoes. Terrible for standing." "Then let's not stand." Dominic swept her up, the same dramatic gesture from their reunion at the Hamptons, and it made her laugh just as much now. "You know I can walk, right?" "I know. But I like carrying you. Makes me feel like I'm protecting something precious." He carried her through empty galleries, past art that had witnessed centuries of human drama. "Where to, my love?" "The Egyptian wing. I want to see the Temple of Denda one more time before we leave." He carried her there, an actual Egyptian temple reconstructed inside the museum, surrounded by a reflecting pool and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The space was magical at night, lit softly, the ancient stone bearing witness to their modern love. Dominic set her down gently, but kept his arms around her. Why here? Because this temple survived. It was built thousands of years ago, dismantled, moved continents, and reconstructed in a completely different context. But it's still standing. Still beautiful. Still meaningful. She looked up at him. That's us. We were dismantled, moved through impossible circumstances, and reconstructed into something different from what we started as. But we're still standing. Still beautiful. In our own dangerous way. Still meaningful. You're comparing our marriage to an ancient Egyptian temple. I'm comparing our survival to something that endures. She smiled. Work with me here. I'm being romantic and metaphorical. I love it. He kissed her forehead. I love you. Your tactical mind and your romantic soul. Your violence and your vulnerability. Your ability to negotiate peace treaties and plan strategic strikes with equal skill. All of it. Every contradictory, complicated, beautiful part of you. Good. She pulled him down for a proper kiss. Because you're stuck with all those parts forever now. No returns, no exchanges. Best deal I ever made, he murmured against her lips. They stayed in the temple room until dawn began to paint the sky beyond the windows, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future and reminiscing about the past. The council's next meeting, potential expansion of legitimate businesses, a vacation they'd take once things stabilized, small dreams and large ambitions tangled together. What do you think Vincent would say if he could see this? Naomi asked eventually. His son working to go legitimate, his network transformed into a peace council, his greatest enemy married to the woman he tried to kill. He'd probably try to kill us all again, Dominic said dryly. Vincent didn't believe in redemption or second chances. That's why he lost. He couldn't imagine a world where love was strength rather than weakness. Do you think we would have made it without Vincent's betrayal? If he hadn't tried to kill me, if we'd just continued in our comfortable, peaceful marriage, would we have survived? Dominic considered the question seriously. Honestly, probably not. We were living a lie, me pretending I could keep you separate from my world, you pretending you could love me without understanding what that love would require. Vincent's cruelty forced us to face truth. In a twisted way, his worst act created our best selves. That doesn't mean I forgive him. No. But it means we can thank him for accidentally teaching us what real partnership looks like. Dominic's smile was sharp. And the best revenge is living well. We're doing that. Spectacularly. As the museum opened for the day, they finally left, slipping out a private entrance where their car waited. The city was waking up around them, delivery trucks and early commuters, the ordinary pulse of life continuing regardless of the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Back at the penthouse, they collapsed onto their beds still wearing formal clothes, exhaustion catching up with adrenaline's fade. We did it, Naomi whispered into the comfortable darkness behind closed curtains. We did, Dominic agreed, pulling her closer. Married twice, died once between, built an empire from the ashes. What's next? Everything. She smiled against his chest. The world's ours, Dominic. Time to reshape it. Ambitious. Always. They slept through the afternoon, waking only when evening approached and Chen messaged about a council matter that could wait but shouldn't be ignored completely. Work was always present in their world. Threats to manage, alliances to maintain, the constant vigilance required to keep peace from sliding into chaos. But as they dressed and prepared to handle whatever crisis had emerged, as they fell back into the partnership that defined them, Naomi felt something she'd thought lost forever: hope. Not naive hope that everything would always work perfectly, but realistic hope that they could handle whatever came, that together they were stronger than any threat, that the love they'd resurrected from death was worth fighting for every single day. 3 months later, Sofia Russo took over her family officially, and the council enforced its promise of support when the Costillanos initially challenged her authority. One swift, coordinated response from all other families ended that challenge permanently. Sofia sent Naomi a bottle of 1947 Chateau de Yquem with a note, to the woman who kept her promises. You've changed this world. Thank you. 6 months after the wedding, Leo Calabrese's investment firm went public, his father's dirty money now completely legitimate. He threw a party and invited everyone from the council, a celebration of successful transformation. During his speech, he raised a glass to the people who showed me that legacy is what we build, not what we inherit. A year after their vow renewal, Naomi discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Bringing a child into their world felt impossibly dangerous. But looking at Dominic's face when she told him, the pure, unguarded joy, she knew they'd find a way to protect their family while maintaining the empire they'd built. A daughter or a son? Dominic asked, his hand on her still flat stomach. Does it matter? Only in that I need to know whether to teach them their mother's negotiation tactics or my strategic planning first. Both, obviously, but order matters. She laughed. How about we teach them both simultaneously? Raise someone who's equal parts ruthless and compassionate. Someone who can build peace while being ready for war. Like their mother. Like both of us. She covered his hand with hers. This child is going to inherit an empire. But unlike Leo, unlike you, unlike me, they'll inherit one built on partnership rather than paranoia. Built to last rather than constantly defended. That's what we're giving them. That's what you've given all of us, Dominic corrected. The Mafia boss's wife who returned from the dead and taught us all how to live better. That's your legacy, Naomi. Our legacy, she insisted. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Without your willingness to change, to trust, to believe that love could be strength. You took a bullet for me before you even understood why that mattered. Now we're building an empire where that kind of love is the foundation. They stood together at their penthouse windows, the same view they'd watched a year ago, but everything different now. The city sprawled before them, 10 million lives living and loving and struggling, unaware that the criminal underworld above them had been reshaped by two people who'd loved each other enough to survive death. I'm scared, Naomi admitted quietly. Of motherhood, of the responsibilities we're taking on, of all the ways this could still fall apart. Good. Dominic pulled her close. Fear keeps us vigilant. But don't let it stop you from celebrating what we've built. Look at it, Naomi. Really look. She did. The council met monthly now, disputes settled through words rather than bullets. Former enemies collaborated on business ventures. Leo had successfully transitioned to legitimate operations. Sofia Russo ran her family with unprecedented female authority. Antonio De Luca had earned the respect he'd always wanted. And she and Dominic, they transformed from tragic lovers to legendary partners, their story already becoming myth in the underworld. Vincent had tried to destroy them. Instead, his betrayal had forged something unbreakable. We survived, Naomi said, wonder in her voice. We actually survived. We did more than survive, Dominic corrected. We won. Not through violence or revenge, but through something Vincent never understood. We chose love over power, partnership over domination, building over destroying. That's not just survival. That's victory. She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd taken a bullet for her, who'd grieved her death for 3 years, who'd chosen her over his empire without hesitation. I love you, Dominic Moretti. Thank you for never giving up on us. Even when I did. I love you, Naomi Moretti. Thank you for coming back. For forgiving me. For being the partner I didn't know I needed until I couldn't breathe without you. He kissed her softly. Here's to the rest of our lives. Complicated, dangerous, and absolutely worth fighting for. To the rest of our lives, she echoed. And in that moment, standing in their empire with their future growing inside her, surrounded by the city they'd reshaped and the love they'd resurrected, Naomi knew with absolute certainty, they were going to be okay. Not because the world was safe, it never would be, but because they faced it together. The Mafia boss's wife had returned as his enemy and ended as his equal. And together, they built something worth more than any empire. A love that survived death, a partnership that changed their world, and a future where their children would inherit not just power, but the wisdom to use it well. In the reflection of the windows, she saw them both, scarred, dangerous, impossibly in love. Two people who'd been broken by betrayal and remade by choice. Two halves of something neither could be alone. Perfect. 5 years later. The council chambers, a permanent space now, not rotating locations, buzzed with controlled chaos. Representatives from all 5 families argued over expansion into digital currencies, debating risk versus reward with the kind of passion that would have ended in bloodshed a decade ago. Naomi Moretti sat at the head of the table, 4 months pregnant with their second child, mediating the discussion with practiced ease. At 4 years old, their daughter Elena played quietly in the corner under Chen's watchful eye, drawing pictures of what she claimed were business meetings. Dominic entered mid-session, pressing a kiss to Naomi's temple before taking his seat beside her. Apologies for the delay. Our security contractor was being difficult. Difficult or reasonable? Naomi asked. Reasonable. Which is why I gave him what he wanted. Dominic's smile was warm. We're teaching Elena already. Pick your battles, honor fair negotiations, and never underestimate opponents. She's 4, Antonio De Luca pointed out, amusement in his voice. And already more strategic than half this council, Sophia Russo replied. She'd become one of Naomi's closest friends over the years, the two women forming an alliance that had reshaped gender dynamics across all families. Last week, she negotiated extra dessert by promising to eat vegetables for a month. Structured deal-making with clear deliverables. The girls are natural. Laughter rippled through the room, genuine, comfortable. These people had become family in the truest sense, bound not by blood but by choice and shared purpose. Leo Calabrese arrived late, apologizing as he took an observer seat. At 29, he'd completely transformed his father's legacy. His investment firm was now one of the most respected in New York, his charitable foundation funded education for at-risk youth, and his connection to the council was advisory rather than operational. He'd gotten his wish, complete legitimacy while maintaining family ties to the organization that had saved him. As the meeting continued, Elena toddled over to Naomi, climbing into her lap with the confidence of a child who'd never questioned her safety. Mama, when can I join the council? When you're older, baby. Much older. How old? Old enough to understand that power is responsibility, not privilege, Dominic said, his voice softening for his daughter in a way that still made Naomi's heart stutter. Old enough to know that we use our strength to protect people, not control them. Like you and Mama do. Exactly like that. Elena seemed satisfied, returning to her drawings. Naomi watched her daughter, this perfect blend of her and Dominic, innocent of the violence that had created the peace she grew up in, and felt fierce gratitude. They'd survived death and betrayal. They'd built an empire on partnership rather than paranoia. They were raising children in a world they'd reshaped to be better, not perfect, but better. And every morning, Naomi woke up beside the man who'd chosen her over everything, who loved her with the same intensity he once grieved her, who proved every day that love could be strength rather than weakness. The Mafia boss's wife had returned as his enemy. She'd ended as his equal. And together, they'd built something worth more than power or legacy or any empire. They'd built a love that could survive anything. Even death itself. Thanks for experiencing this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.